Excellency President Ilham Aliyev, distinguished participants of the 6th ADA University Policy Forum. It is a great honor to welcome you at our semi-annual policy forum. This time, we have 64 participants from 30 countries. At the personal initiative and support of President Aliyev, we will be going tomorrow to beautiful city Lachin, liberated from the Armenian occupation and already witnessing the return of Azerbaijani IDPs. Since our last forum back in December 2023, Azerbaijan has been unanimously supported as the next host of UN Climate Change Conference. This is another sign of our strong diplomacy at the global scale and well-recognized reputation of Azerbaijan as a reliable partner for multilateral negotiations. Previously, Azerbaijan has successfully chaired other important organizations such as UN Security Council, Non-Alignment Movement, Organization of Turkic States, and many others. Baku is the birthplace of the world oil industry. Now, it is symbolic that in coming November, tens of thousands delegates are expected in Baku for COP29 summit to discuss the future of our planet from climate change perspective. ADA University is honored to be an active academic partner of organizing committee in providing trainings, conferences, and researches with relevant international institutions. This forum will contribute to the global policy discussions by adding the input on regional security, the vision of Azerbaijan regarding energy transition and green growth, developments of green eco-friendly zones in Karabakh, wind and solar project of Azerbaijan, future of green corridor into EU, and many other issues. We would also like to focus on the environmental impact of the Armenian occupation, including massive landmine problem and possible international legal tools to mitigate this damage. Your Excellency, Mr. President, using this opportunity, please allow me to congratulate you and our nation with diplomatic success in regards to return of villages in Kazakh region by peaceful means. We wish you all the best in tireless efforts to bring prosperity and development to our region. We thank you for your time with us at ADA University, especially knowing how busy your schedule is. We hope that today's discussion and tomorrow's visit to Karabakh will further shed lights on the regional developments at times of global confrontation. No doubt that this will help our participating experts with their future analysis and publications. Mr. President, the floor is yours now. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear guests, very glad to see you all. Welcome to Azerbaijan. I wish you a pleasant stay in our country and fruitful discussions, as always. Also, I'm grateful for being invited again to have an opportunity to talk to you. I regularly participate at others' forum, and as it was already said, last time we met here in the beginning of last December. So many things have happened since that time in Azerbaijan and around, and I would say that all of these events develop in a positive direction, whether it's a process of normalization between Azerbaijan and Armenia, border delimitation, or if we talk about COP29, of course, it's a sign of big respect and support to Azerbaijan from international community. And we are now in a very active phase of preparation. We had only less than 1 year, so we must be very active and efficient in order to have good results. Of course, the COP29 is a big responsibility for us, not only from point of view of all these organizational issues, but from point of view of delivery of results. You will visit Lachin tomorrow. You have been already, I mean, the participants, because I see many familiar faces, and also I know that there are new participants, but participants of the forum already been to Shusha, to Agdam, Zengilan, and now Lachin. I'm sure you will enjoy your trip. Lachin is one of the most beautiful parts of Azerbaijan. And when we talk about green future, so you will see Lachin, all is green. And of course, huge development is now underway, and seeing how we rebuilt Lachin city, and already one village next to it, you will actually see how Karabakh and Eastern Zangezur will look like after we complete the restoration work. Last May, I handed over the keys of the first inhabitants of Lachin, who returned there after more than 30 years. And now, every month, the new residents are coming. And as we prognosed, the percentage of the former refugees who want to go back to their native lands is even higher than we anticipated. And even those who've never been there, I mean, young generation or children, they enjoy being there. So it really demonstrates how Azerbaijani people are connected to their roots. Lachin was occupied 10 days after Shusha in May 1992, and that was actually one of the most tragic parts of the First Karabakh War, because land connection between Armenia and the Karabakh district of Azerbaijan, as a result of that occupation, was established, and thus it allowed huge movement of weapons and military personnel from Armenia to our land. Liberation of Lachin was also a demonstration of our strong political will. Biggest part of Lachin was liberated by political means. During the Second Karabakh War, we liberated the southern part of Lachin, and that was also very important military victory. But the biggest part, including the city, was liberated by political means. So when I say that occupied territories were liberated by military political means, so Lachin is a good example of that. And now we are moving on political track, and I'm sure that we can achieve all our goals by political means, what we already demonstrate. So I don't want to take much of your time in these introductory remarks. I think better if we leave more time for discussions. So once again, thank you for invitation, and thank you for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. With your permission, we can start discussion and Q&A session. I will invite for the first question Mrs. Daria Sachenko, Associate, German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Daria, please.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Daria Sachenko. I'm from the Center for Applied Turkey Studies at the German Institute for International Security Affairs. I wanted to ask you a question about your opinion about the Eurasian integration. Over the last 2-3 years, we've seen Azerbaijan participating at the summits and other events of the Eurasian Economic Union. Are you interested in Eurasian integration? What benefits do you see for Baku, and can it be expected if Azerbaijan might become a member? And if I may add another second question, this week you will be visiting Germany later. I was wondering what expectations do you have about this visit? And thank you very much indeed for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. It's true that we've been invited to participate at some of the events of Eurasian Economic Union on the level of President and on the level of Prime Minister. I participated once as a guest of honor, and actually with all the countries of members of Eurasian Union, except Armenia, Azerbaijan has a very close partnership relationship. So for us, this group of countries is not something very strange, so we know them very well. With respect to the plans, with respect to closer cooperation, Azerbaijan's economy actually is a self-sufficient economy, and it demonstrates sustainable growth even in the period of crisis. We have very low foreign debt, which now is even below 8% of our GDP, which really demonstrates that we are among the leading countries in that respect. And sustainable economy is based on natural resources and diversified economy with good economic ties, by the way, bilateral ties with members of Eurasian Union actually is enough for us. So if there are additional advantages, and we see practical advantages of further integration, of course we will evaluate that. If we really assess the benefits and shortcomings of being more associated with Eurasian Union, of course we will make a right decision. According to information which we have, there are certain economic disagreements emerging from time to time among the member states. And as I said, except Armenia, with all the rest, members of Eurasian Union, we have very good relations, including economic ties. So, of course, we don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we'll have to fight or, how to say, make steps which will hurt some economic benefits of our partners. But again, all our steps, including with respect to membership in international institutions, always was based on pragmatism. The same I can say about our membership in the non-aligned movement. We became a member of non-aligned movement something more than 10 years ago. That was a deliberate and well-analyzed step, and after that we became a chair and demonstrated our capability and also gained a lot of friends. So far we don't have such plans, but we cannot say that it will not be the case for our elaboration in the future. Everything will depend on what additional economic benefits we may get from being closer. If we see it, yes, we will make a decision. If not, we are satisfied with what we have now. With respect to German-Azerbaijani relations, I would say that last months we see more active interaction. I was invited to Germany and visited Germany last March and met with the President and the Chancellor. And with the Chancellor we met also last February in Munich. And this time I'm invited to participate at the Petersburg conference as President of the host country of COP29. This is a traditional conference held in Germany and usually the president of the host country is invited. But at the same time, there'll be meetings with leaders of Germany, and I think that we are now on the good track of our cooperation. There is a big mutual economic interest. Recently, I met with a big group of German business community representatives, members of German Eastern Economic Committee. There are a lot of plans of cooperation, of investments, of getting access to contracts with governmental structures. And of course, political foundation is always important, because in Germany and of course in Azerbaijan, business always evaluates political risks. And if the relations between the countries are stable, then of course business is guided by that. So I would say that now we experience maybe one of the most active periods in our bilateral relations, and we can assess it very positively.
Ambassador Matthew Breiser, Board Member, Jamestown Foundation, United States of America.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thanks so much, Mr. President, for the honor of being here with you. These are some of the most interesting conversations I've ever had, is seeing how and listening to how you respond to everything in detail, no notes. And thank you, Ambassador Rector Pashayev, for a chance to be here. Yeah, what an amazing, 9 months since last September? We were talking at lunch how Azerbaijan has taken quantum leaps in recovering all your territory, rebuilding them with these innovative technologies into green energy zones, smart municipalities, COP29, getting back the villages from Kazakh Russian peacekeepers have left. It's unbelievable what has happened. Organizing COP29 is obviously overwhelming, and it's what everybody has to spend most of their time on. But there's a strategic communications part I wanted to ask you about, what the strategy is to tell Azerbaijan's story about all these factors I just mentioned, not in a way that promotes Azerbaijan, because then people will just think you're trying to manipulate the stage, but just tell the actual story, because people are listening now. They want Azerbaijan to succeed because they want COP29 to succeed. So how does the strategic communications plan look? And as a suggestion, maybe we could convene a regional Greater Caspian group of NGOs and companies or like-minded people to focus on how this whole COP29 chairmanship for Azerbaijan came out of the peace process. And you were sitting there telling us last December that Pashinyan just lifted his veto. It's a really great story, but it's not going to be told unless there's some mechanism, maybe to come up with a declaration at COP29 that leads to an ongoing working group year after year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Of course, we will evaluate these suggestions, and really we want COP29 to be successful from point of view of tackling the issues of climate change. And at the same time, it's an opportunity to tell our story. And you're absolutely right that we have a lot of things to tell to the world and to tell the truth. And I think one of the advantages of being a host country is that we will receive tens of thousands of people. Most of them will visit us for the first time, and they will have an opportunity for maximum 2 weeks or less to assess themselves. Situation, how they feel themselves here, what the countries look like, and what are our plans. And as you said in your comment, that so many events happened since we met last time, and all of them in positive direction. We didn't have any setback, didn't have any crisis. On the contrary, we are just building success after success. And everybody, at least in Azerbaijan and in the region, understands that it is not just by chance. All is based on a thoughtful policy, on strategy, on proper tactics, on many other elements of our policy and diplomacy. And you're absolutely right, COP29 was a result of a peace process. And actually, though the main topic will be finance this time, but as a host country, we can add additional agenda, and one of them, there'll be several, but one of them will be peace. And first, because it was a peace process which allowed us to become the host country, because Armenia lifted the veto, and we did also the steps towards them. And actually, it's just more than COP and just more than what happened last December, because it created more confidence between us. And one of the biggest challenge is lack of confidence, or mutual, or very low level of confidence. And this case demonstrates that we can at least not to act against each other every time and at every stage. So that was the first time when we did not act against each other on international arena. On the contrary, we, well, we did not support each other, but we were neutral. And I think this is a success. And what we see now on border delimitation, I think, is one of the results of that step when we demonstrated that. A lot is to be done, of course, in order to build more confidence between two countries, and especially between the peoples. But important is the tendency, important is which path we are passing. And I think illustration of what I'm saying is really remarkable, because COP29 in Azerbaijan is a result of resolution of the conflict and is a result of the progress on a peace track. I think that in order to put your ideas on a more practical scale, it will be good if you can share more with us how you see this event to be integrated with your activity. There'll be a lot of side events during COP. Many international organizations will hold their events, even summits, and maybe you can also think, I mean, at a forum at that time. Usually you convene in December, so you can reschedule a little bit. And first of all, I'd like to invite you, if you have time to visit us, we'll be happy. And also to think what else we can do, because now the Caucasus is one of the regions on a global scale where events develop rapidly, and in order to direct them in the right direction, sorry for tautology, we need to be proactive. We cannot just sit and wait. If we do it, we will lose. It's not a time that you can relax. And I was saying that right after the Second Karabakh War, we have no time to celebrate, and we didn't celebrate. We worked, and we continue to do it because a lot is to be done. And I think that this agenda will lead to strengthening of security measures in the Caucasus, I mean in the Southern Caucasus in general, will create opportunities for at least consultations among 3 Southern Caucasian countries, and which lead the way to future cooperation. I think it's a unique chance now. We've been deprived from that when Soviet Union collapsed, unlike Baltic states, which started their, how to say, independent journey in peaceful environment. We had wars. So now it's a chance to turn that page, and we're doing it. And I think COP29 is an excellent example. And what we are now seeing on the border between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and you do not see what is behind the scenes. I mean, the contacts between representatives of two countries, discussions, more open, more constructive. And with respect to the border delimitation, Azerbaijan and Armenia behave in a very constructive way, very constructive. What is seen is only part it is a result, but this result is based on regular contacts and positive dynamics. So we need to consolidate on that and to move forward.
Nigar Göksel, Turkey and Cyprus Director, International Crisis Group, Türkiye.
Cenab President, çok teşekkürler. I congratulate you for the hosting of the UN Climate Summit. Very excited about that. Actually, you somewhat answered what I was going to ask, which was, at what stage do you expect the Armenia-Azerbaijan peace track to be at the time of the summit? And how do you expect that hosting the summit might contribute both to Armenia-Azerbaijan dialogue, but also to a wider regional cooperation?
I think that taking into account what we already discussed, there are good chances for having a serious progress on the peace track. Just going a little bit back, I want to say once again that it was Azerbaijan, the country which initiated the peace process, because when the Second Karabakh War ended, there was a certain vacuum in the region and also beyond, and actually nobody knew what is next. So the war stopped. It was not yet the solution, and what is next? So we decided just to launch this initiative and to start negotiations and publicly announce that. At first stage, there was no response from Armenian side. We can understand it because results of war were not very easy for them. Then we made another step. We elaborated the basic principles for peace agreement, those famous 5 basic principles, which we made public. And actually, negotiations started based on those principles. Armenia added some different topics, and that was actually the main obstacle, because they wanted to integrate into peace agreement between 2 sovereign countries issue related to so-called Nagorno-Karabakh, which was absolutely unacceptable for us, because Nagorno-Karabakh, so-called, was and is Karabakh region is internal issue of Azerbaijan. And that was the main reason why we did not achieve progress, because all the time they insisted on that paragraph, which was absolutely unacceptable for us. So we saw that it's no way to come to agreement. It lasted until last September, after we fully restored our sovereignty. But there was another problem, that after that, Armenian side took a break, and for at least 2 months did not respond to our comments, because we have this practice of exchange of comments. Both foreign ministers do it regularly. It's been, I think, already 8 or 7 times that we exchange comments on draft agreement. And negotiations resumed only relatively recently. And my meeting with Armenian Prime Minister took place just 2 months ago only. And after that, the ministers met, and we are grateful to Germany, to Chancellor Scholz for making this proposal, and to Minister Baerbock for hosting the meeting of 2 foreign ministers of Armenia and Azerbaijan. So I would say that we are only now approaching the real substantive negotiations, because after full restoration of our sovereignty and territorial integrity, Armenia lifted that paragraph. So they do not insist, obviously, any longer of any mentioning of so-called Karabakh in any aspect of it. So actually this eliminates the most important obstacle, and the rest paragraphs, I think, can be agreed, because there is nothing new, nothing which we invented. All the principles are based on international law norms and based on pragmatic approach. We've been approached by Kazakhstan with a proposal to have a meeting between foreign ministers of Azerbaijan and Armenia in Kazakhstan, and we agreed to that. If Armenia also agrees, the next meeting of foreign ministers of both countries will take place there. And here I also want to make it clear, we are not talking about any kind of mediation, because what happens now on our border demonstrates that when we're left alone and nobody wants to use this situation for their kind of political ambitions, we can agree sooner than later. So it is only the platform, only the premises which we are talking about, and we are grateful also to the government of Kazakhstan for such a proposal. So I think now we need to wait for Armenian side to respond. But again, coming back to the substance of what is being discussed, I think that we are close, and maybe close as never before, because we've never been close during the times of occupation. We could not agree on basic principles at that time, those famous Madrid principles. We could not even agree on that. We did not even have a draft of peace agreement at that time, but now we have it. Now we have common understanding how the peace agreement should look like. We only need to address the details, but of course, both sides need time, because it will be, if signed, it will be a historical agreement for both countries. Therefore, every word, every full stop, every paragraph is important. But important is that we have, I think, both political will to do it.
James Sharp, former UK ambassador in Azerbaijan. James.
Teşekkür ederim. Hikmet ve salam Cenab President ve indi etiraz etmişsiniz
Hoş gelmişsiniz.
men indi İngilizce danışacağım. As you know, we hosted COP26 in Glasgow a 3 years ago now. And from our perspective, of course, being chairman gives you both opportunities and responsibilities. And the key responsibility of the chairman will be to negotiate consensus agreements on a whole range of issues that the countries need to decide upon to tackle climate change. But also, there's a responsibility we felt anyway that we had to show leadership in taking measures to show the rest of the world that we were doing what we wanted everyone else to do. We were going beyond what we were asking everybody else to do. So at that time, of course, we were lobbying you and Mukhtar Babayev that Azerbaijan should commit to net zero by 2050, of course. And you weren't able to meet that commitment at that time. But hopefully, as chairman, you will be able to commit to that. But in terms of opportunity, I mean, we've partially covered this already, but it's an opportunity to shine a spotlight on the region, on the Caucasus, the Caspian, the Central Asian region, and the problems, the environmental problems that these regions face as a result of climate change, such as the shrinkage of the Caspian Sea, which we see increasing desertification, and of course, some of the transboundary river disputes that we see in Central Asia and in the Caucasus. So I was I'd be more interested in some of if you have ideas about how you might specifically want to address those environmental issues, the regional environmental issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Even before we've been awarded with COP29, we were seriously addressing the environmental issues and trying to reduce the negative impact of climate change. And as you correctly mentioned, everybody can see here, especially in summer when people go to the beaches, they see that the sea goes away year after year. And it has never been like that. I mean, there was a periods when the sea was coming and going, but that was a process. But now the sea only goes. And This is a serious problem for environment and also for trade. We have to dig more canals in order to accommodate the vessels. And if this shrinking of Caspian Sea continues like that, so we will face not only environmental, but serious issues related to connectivity. Because one of the important projects now being implemented, the Middle Corridor, is passing through Caspian Sea. So it's a variety of issues. We do a lot on environmental protection. Here, you lived here several years, you know our agenda on that. We do a lot on cleaning the Absheron Peninsula, and one of the prominent examples is the White City project, which was called Black City. I don't know whether all of you have been there, but if not, I would recommend just to go and to visit. We built city inside the city on the territory which was completely polluted for decades. And the part of Baku, which when we passed it by car, we always closed the windows because of the smell, and now is a demonstration of green city planning and delivery. And another example is BBA Bad Bay, which was part of the James Bond movie. And if you look if you watch that movie, you will see how it looked. But now it's one of the greenest parts of Baku. So many examples like that. But now we are also working actively on the water resources in Karabakh and Eastern Zangezur. We've been deprived from them during the times of occupation. Main rivers which have a source in Azerbaijan are situated exactly there. And during the times of occupation, Armenians were just closing the dams and depriving us from water in the season when we need it and opening in winter. So hundreds of thousands of hectares of Azerbaijan, which was supposed to be irrigated by water from Eastern Zangezur and Karabakh, were not irrigated. So now we are back. We are now controlling our water resources. And we're planning to build several big water storages and water canals, and not only in that part, but also in the central part of Azerbaijan. And our plans have been already announced, and really it will allow us to save every drop of water which now is just lost. We have in our old canals, we have a loss about 30%. So after modernization and new technologies, the loss of water will be not more than 5%. With respect to the transboundary rivers, this is the biggest concern because we cannot control that situation. And there are objective and subjective reasons. Objective, of course, is climate change. Objectively, there are less water in the rivers, but at the same time, hydrotechnical infrastructure projects on those rivers, which lead to shallowing them. The same we see, for instance, in Volga River, because Volga River is a main source for Caspian Sea. And now when there are less water in the Volga River, obviously, so Caspian Sea shrinkage is not because of climate change. It's also because Volga is not feeding the sea properly as it should be. So of course, it is an issue of multilateral cooperation. And with our neighbors, we are trying to, we are actually addressing these issues, because if we don't take coordinated measures and proper steps, we all will suffer. But talking about in general with respect to results, we are committed to work actively with all the members. We have, I think, good opportunities for that. Chairing non-aligned movement for 4 years, gained a lot of friends for Azerbaijan who trust us. The countries of Global South, which Azerbaijan is part of, today need special attention. And of course, one of the issues of disagreement with respect to climate issues is the responsibility of developing, and underdeveloped countries. And this shared responsibility must be fair. And of course, negative contribution to climate problems must be also openly addressed. So we think that having these connections, also having good connections with many European countries, we can play a role of a coordinator, of a bridge. At the same time, being a country rich with oil and gas allows us to have more interaction with oil and gas producing countries, and also to create a kind of a platform of responsibility for countries rich with oil and gas, because these countries, including Azerbaijan, must make serious steps. We already demonstrated that in the platform which is called OPEC+, when coordinated reduction of production led to stabilization of oil prices. We need to make coordinated efforts on financial contribution of those countries which produce oil and gas. And this will be absolutely objective. And we also are ready to do it. And another issue which was a kind of innovation for COP29 is that we initiated and already established the Troika mechanism. It was Azerbaijan's initiative to have this format with UAE, COP28, and Brazil, COP30. So we already had meetings of ministers, and that will help us to plan, because November 2024, COP29, Baku will be finished, but the process should continue. We are now using the great experience of UAE in preparation and in delivery. So being together in this troika really creates a synergy, coordination, and predictability. We have other plans with respect to ideas, but probably it's a little bit premature to disclose them. But we treat our chairmanship not only as an opportunity to demonstrate us, the country presentation, so forth, though it's important, but as an opportunity to contribute really to practical resolution of the most urgent issue on global arena. I'm very glad to see you, Mr. Ambassador. Hoş geldiniz. Welcome back.
Alexander Hedjazi, Director, Global Environmental Policy Program, University of Geneva, Switzerland.
Thank you very much. Salam, Mr. President, and allow me to congratulate again, as my colleagues, the presidency of COP29. From our position in Switzerland, we look at with a lot of interest at Azerbaijan. We are in the center of Europe, surrounded by big, sizable neighbors. And we see with a lot of interest how Azerbaijan has fulfilled its promise of coming up with its own, we were talking earlier with the youth here, Azerbaijani way. And when it comes to bringing two success stories of Azerbaijan, one being one of the big players on global energy scene, and its new role as one of the prominent players on environmental scene, I wanted to ask for your insight on how you would like, or how you foresee the massive investment that you've done within the last few years in the deployment of strategic infrastructure. I'm thinking, for example, of Port Baku. In bringing these two elements that somehow could be contradictory, energy trade and energy development and environmental stewardship, how do you foresee the use of these infrastructures that you've invested for your country to leave a legacy for Azerbaijan and Azerbaijani people and the region? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good question, and thank you for raising this issue. First of all, I'd like to say that all petroleum operations which are being held in Azerbaijan since 1994 are done on the standards of international environmental protection. Our main investors are leading energy companies over the world, and of course, everybody knows that their attention to environment is really a good example, and we witness it not only during the activity on offshore rigs, but also during the construction of major oil and gas pipelines, where there was a special care taken of birds, turtles, and other species, and also archaeological excavations. There have been cases where they had to divert because of important archaeological foundings. This is one thing. Another thing is that before independence, during the Soviet time and during the times of Tsarist Russia, our energy resources were exploited without any concern to environment. And that was how Baku was one of the most polluted cities of the world. We had oil lakes, we had oil spills, we had to spend hundreds of millions and even billions of US dollars in order to clean that terrible legacy, which was an ecological catastrophe. And what you see now in Baku, you cannot even imagine how it looked like 10, 20 years ago, because we made a lot of recultivation, a lot of cleanings, and a lot of ecologically friendly initiatives. Now, as a COP29, the level of our responsibility, of course, is growing. First, because we treat this chairmanship with a very serious approach, and second, because we're on the spotlight. And immediately after we got the chairmanship, we've been attacked by different NGOs and media that, oh, again, oil-producing country, again, is chairing COP. So it was as if it was our fault. And my message was, it is not our fault that we have oil. Look how we use these resources. First, look how we use it for countries' development, for poverty reduction, for fair distribution of wealth, and then use how we use it for infrastructure, for green energy. So today, having oil and gas production stable and with respect to gas even growing, at the same time, we develop green energy projects. One important issue on that is the restrictions which are imposed in Europe with respect to fossil fuel. We see a kind of a contradiction here, and we already raised this issue in front of our European partners. On one hand, European Union wants more gas from Azerbaijan. For that purpose, almost 2 years ago, EU and Azerbaijan signed the Declaration on Strategic Partnership in the Energy Field. Based on that, our gas supply to Europe should have increased from 8 BCM 2021 to 20 BCM 2027. And this, it is not obligation, but it is a target. And we are moving towards that target. This year, our gas supply to Europe will be around 12 billion cubic meters. In comparison with 2021, it is 4 billion more. So we have to invest more, we have to produce more, but there is a restriction with respect to financial institutions to finance fossil fuel projects. For instance, European Investment Bank completely took it out of their portfolio. EBRD has a small portion for fossil fuel projects. So how Europe wants to get more gas from Azerbaijan when first they do not provide financing, because it's a project like that, all the projects which we implemented, whether it's oil or gas pipelines, it's about 30% of corporate financing. The rest is lended money. So this is the first question. And second question is they want us to produce more and to supply more. And they do, by the way, projects related to interconnectors construction in Europe. But at the same time, they do not give us a guarantee that our gas will be needed for a long time. So we cannot invest billions only for 5–10 years and then not be able to recover the costs. Southern Gas Corridor and investments in Shah Deniz Stage 2 projects today did not yet reach the zero balance. We still are repaying the debts. So Azerbaijan, whatever we get from gas sales, we, cover the debts. So these are two most important issues which we need to address with respect to EU-Azerbaijan gas cooperation. And on incorporation of green energy and fossil fuel, I think that the world will need fossil fuel for many more years. And it will be, I think, naive to think that one day just it will stop. So the world is not ready for that, the world's economy is not ready for that, and industry is not ready for that. So I think the best way will be to create a synergy and to have an evolutionary way rather than to put a target which cannot be reached. In our case, we are doing it. We already started active investments with our investors in a green energy projects. Last October, we inaugurated the first 240 megawatt solar power plant. And this year, we will see the groundbreaking ceremony of 4 more solar and wind power plants of the total capacity of 1,300 megawatts. So that will make our potential 1.5, even more. But this is only the beginning, because we have enormous potential of wind and offshore and onshore, and also solar energy. Plus, we add hydro, only in Karabakh and Eastern Zangezur for last 3 years. The capacity of the hydropower stations is close to 170 megawatt, and this is only the beginning. So thus, we will substitute large portion of gas which we use to produce electricity with renewable sources. And this is absolutely realistic. What I'm saying is not our plans, it's already contracts we've signed. Already land has been not only selected, but also commissioned for construction. So probably in several months, maximum maybe 3–4 months, we'll see all what I'm saying. And if we bring renewable production in Azerbaijan up to 5 gigawatt, that will substitute large portion of natural gas which we use for electricity, and we can reach our target which has been articulated with a percentage of renewables even shorter period of time. And of course, the synergy here is that the gas which will be safe here, not sending it to power stations, will be sent to Europe, which needs it and will need, and will continue to need it. But not only that Europe will need additional green energy sources, because even taking into account the huge investments which European countries are making, they still will be in shortage. So they will need additional energy, and we're working on that. As you know, the green energy cable from Caspian to Black Sea and then further down to Europe. now in the last phase of feasibility study. As soon as feasibility study is ready, we will start, and we already are discussing the practical track, discussing opportunity of connection this cable with Central Asia. So actually what we are talking now, we're expanding the project because it started like a Black Sea cable from Georgia, Black Sea to Romania, Black Sea coast. We expanded it to the Caspian, and now we're expanding it further down to the eastern Caspian to Kazakhstan. And taking into account the investment projects in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan with renewables, they will, in a relatively short period of time, will be not energy deficit, but energy proficit countries. And the way to export will be again through Azerbaijan and further down to Europe. So all these issues are closely connected with geopolitics and with regional cooperation. So Azerbaijan always first separated energy projects from politics, but at the same time integrated them only in positive meaning. All our energy projects leads to cooperation. And today, if you look at the countries surrounded on Southern Gas Corridor, we see that some of these countries have not very, how to say, easy relations, but this project unites. It's a shared interest, it is a win-win situation, and energy actually leads to peace. In the history, we know that oil leads to war, to bloodshed. Now we change the paradigm, and so far we've been successful. It's already 30 years that Azerbaijan started its oil cooperation with international companies, being the first country who invited foreign oil companies to Caspian Sea. And we have, I think, more bright future, not to abandon fossil fuel, we will not do it, but at the same time concentrate on green agenda. And once again, thank you for this issue. And also, will be good if we can elaborate on that more, maybe closer to COP, to have more ideas about what we just exchanged, just to make it also part of our agenda at the conference.
Xiaoyun Chang, Director, Center for Russian and Central Asian Studies, Shanghai Institute for International Studies, China.
Thank you. Salam, Mr. President.
Alex.
My question about the bilateral relationship between China and Azerbaijan. As we know, Azerbaijan plays a unique and a very important role as a bridge between the south and the north, the east and the west. So how do you see the prospect of cooperation between China and Azerbaijan in the development of the Trans-Caspian international transport corridors? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our relations are developing very successfully and based on mutual respect, mutual support, and recognition of territorial integrity of each other. Azerbaijan was among the first countries which expressed its opinion with respect to elections in Taiwan. We not only expressed concern, but we denounced it. So our policy of One China is very well known to our Chinese partners, and China always supported Azerbaijan's territorial integrity. So this was a kind of a basis for our cooperation. But now, cooperation expands both in political and economic area, in the area of transportation. I met many times President Xi Jinping and have very good impressions of our meetings. And actually, these meetings, they give additional impetus to our relations. We now see more Chinese companies as investors in Azerbaijan, in the industrial sector, which we highly appreciate. Our political contacts are regular, an exchange of high-level delegations. And of course, as you mentioned, the transportation part is also becoming more and more important. And Trans-Caspian transportation route is needed today more than ever before. We see year after year the growing volume of cargoes going from China through Azerbaijan. And by the way, during the state visit of President of Kazakhstan last month, we had a ceremony of joint welcoming of the container train from Xi'an, which arrived to Baku. So this was our joint demonstration of cooperation between our countries. Of course, Kazakhstan and China have much more active cooperation, but Azerbaijan and China also developed their cooperation in a very promising way and in a very resultative way. I firmly believe in the great future of the Middle Corridor project. Here in Azerbaijan, we actually constructed all the necessary infrastructure, including the modern and new seaport. And by the way, now we are working on expansion of the seaport, because today's 100,000 TEU and total 15 million tons of handling capacity will not be enough. We already understand it. We want to bring it to 25 million tons and 500,000 or even 1 million TEU in order to be able to accommodate the growing volume of cargo, not only from China, but also from Central Asia. Because in today's geopolitical environment, this route, as I said, is needed. And we also make another steps with respect to institutional support of that, because physical infrastructure is not enough. So we already created a joint venture between Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Georgia. We are now working actively on digitalization of transportation route. We are applying the artificial intelligence system in our customs administration so that the handling of cargoes will be taking less time, and transparency and control over cargoes is absolute. So this is what we are doing now, apart from building railroads, seaports, etc., etc. So, and you also mentioned the north-south transportation corridor, which for Azerbaijan is now less important. It's really a geographical gift, I would say, that we are situated on this juncture, that both roads cross our territory. And with respect to north-south, we already have railroad infrastructure which connects us with Russian and Iranian border. And now soon we will start to build new railroad infrastructure, because we expect at least 15 million tons of cargo coming only from Russia to the Persian Gulf. And if we add direction from opposite, cargoes from opposite direction, so I think 15 million is only the beginning. Today's our north-south railroad, Azerbaijani segment, can handle 6-7 million tons of cargo, which is enough for us and for transitors. But for the future, we will need additional railroads. So we already are working on accumulation of financing, and not later than next year, we will start practical construction of that. Actually, part from Russian border to Baku is being renovated already, but now we need from Baku to Iranian border. And last point on that, these roads will not be two separate roads, because it will allow cargoes to go from south to west or from north to west, which is already happening now, using existing infrastructure. But with the new infrastructure, the volume will be bigger, and of course, that will increase geopolitical importance of Azerbaijan, and definitely will bring additional financial benefits to us.
Professor, Keio University, Japan.
Mr. President, thank you so much for this great opportunity. I'm Yoko Hirose, a Japanese professor specializing in Azerbaijan and former USSR region. Last year, I wrote an article for the Azerbaijan Ministry of Foreign Affairs magazine, World Diplomacy, about how you and your father have had implemented great policy for IDPs. I sincerely respect your accomplishments, and I'm very honored to have this opportunity today. Now, Azerbaijan around Turkey is increasing its international influence, and I believe that the Zangezur corridor will become even more important as Azerbaijan's future increases its international and regional influence. And it seems to relate to the Middle Corridor project deeply. Regarding the opening Zangezur corridor, I understand that Armenia and Iran are against it, but what kind of outlook and policy does Azerbaijan have regarding the Zangezur corridor? In addition, Russia recently withdrew from a peacekeeping operation in Karabakh, but according to the 2020 peace agreement, the Russian FSB was supposed to maintain a peace when Zangezur corridor opened. What will happen in this regard? Furthermore, what will happen to the relationship between Azerbaijan and Russia in the future, centering on the Karabakh issue? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Several questions you asked. I will try to answer all of them. On Zangezur corridor, as you mentioned, trilateral declaration, which was signed on 10th November 2020, clearly reflected this. Yes, the word Zangezur corridor was not mentioned, but it was said that there must be a connection, transportation connection between the eastern part of Azerbaijan and Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic, and Russian border security forces must provide control. So that was signed by President Putin, Prime Minister Pashinyan, and myself. So now Armenia, for more than 3 years, is actually violating this provision. And again, they signed it themselves. And now they want to, get rid of that paragraph. But it is not possible. And what they do, they just block the possibility to build this land connection with Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic. And this behavior, of course, is very disappointing. How trilateral declaration was signed is a different story. What were the circumstances, also everybody knows, but there was a signature by Armenian Prime Minister, and it must be respected. So seeing that the process got stuck, we actually had to find another option, and we found it. And we started consultations with the Iranian side and agreed to make a bypass through Iranian territory, actually on the southern part of Araz River. We just need only 2 bridges for transportation and maybe 2 additional bridges for railroad. And by the way, the construction of the automotive bridges have started. There was even a groundbreaking ceremony there with the participation of high-ranking officials from Azerbaijan and Iran. What will be in the end? Armenia will lose. They want to become a crossroads. Yeah, they call it a crossroads of peace. But in order to become a crossroads of peace, first they have to agree with us. Because if Azerbaijan do not agree to that, it will be just a piece of paper or a statement. Without agreement with us, it is absolutely useless. And unfortunately, they try to discuss it with different countries situated far, far away from the region. But when it comes to the point, they don't want to discuss it with us. And our position is very clear. The trilateral declaration must be respected. And land access from mainland Azerbaijan to Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic through Armenia must be provided with an international control and security mechanism. If they don't want now, due to some reasons, that it should be Russian border security, they should say it. But again, it is something which they sign themselves, and they must respect their signature. So, so it's clear that they will lose the opportunity to become a transit country. They've never been a transit country, as independent country, I mean, and they will never become, because all these speculations about so-called peace crossroads is absolutely not realistic without Azerbaijan. And if they think that someone will come and build a railroad from Iran to Armenia and Georgia, they need to find someone who will spend maybe $5–7 billion US for nobody knows which reason. While there is a land connection between Iran and Azerbaijan, and the north-south transportation corridor is being built, and there is a rail connection between Azerbaijan and Georgia. And so anyway, it is up to them how to plan their future. But with respect to our plans, as I said, construction have started. We next year plan to complete the construction of the railroad, which was dismantled by Armenians during the times of occupation, from Fizuli to Zengilan. It's almost done. And after that, along with the highway bridge, we plan to build a railroad bridge to Iran and then back to Nakhchivan. So that will allow us and other countries to use this road for transportation to Persian Gulf, because that will be another extension of north-south transportation route, because bypassing Armenia and coming to Nakhchivan, then extension is through Julfa to Iran, an Iranian railroad. And also from Nakhchivan, there is a plan which already was announced by Turkish government to build a railroad connection between Nakhchivan and Kars. So that will be also part of east-west transportation corridor. Today's capacity of the railroad we are building to Zengilan is around 5 million tons. But if we see more cargoes, it can be expanded. So Azerbaijan definitely will strengthen its position as a regional transportation center without having direct access to world ocean. But Armenia will remain just a deadlock as they are for more than 30 years. With respect to the Russian peacekeepers, the announcement have been made already by presidential administrations of Russia and Azerbaijan that they are leaving Karabakh region of Azerbaijan before the timetable. And that was a joint decision by the leaders of Russia and Azerbaijan. I can also inform you how how actually we negotiated this issue. I think it would be interesting. I already a couple of times in my meetings with Azerbaijani journalists revealed that day of 9 November, when we actually were negotiating the trilateral declaration through President Putin, because we didn't have any contact with Armenian colleague, so there were several telephone conversations agreeing every item of trilateral declaration. So therefore it lasted from early in the morning until almost morning of the 10th November. That's why we always say that declaration was signed on 10th November because it was already, I think, 2 a.m. or even 2:30 a.m. in Baku. Item of Russian peacekeepers was presented, and Armenia's position was that there should be no time limit for them. In other words, they should stay there forever. We could not agree with that, and we insisted that there should be a time limit. And that was one of the most difficult parts where both sides could not agree. And for us, it was one of the most principal part of declaration, and our position was that if we do not agree on that, there'll be no declaration, and the war will continue. And at that time, our troops were on the outskirts of Khankendi. We de facto controlled so-called Lachin corridor, and the fate of 15,000 of Armenian troops, which were surrounded where we liberated Shusha, was absolutely clear for everyone. They would have either surrendered or even worse for them. So we said, okay, there'll be then no agreement, we continue. We will enter Khankendi within several hours. So Armenia had to agree. And now I think they understand that we were right. So 5 years term and then extension if neither side objects was actually the starting point of the withdrawal of troops. So what could have been situation if we didn't have that timetable? We can only guess. But again, the decision to withdraw troops earlier was a decision adopted based on consultations between Azerbaijan and Russia. Azerbaijan always is committed to its international obligations, and our position was that if it is written November 2025, it must be November 2025. But at the same time, both sides, Russia and Azerbaijan, clearly understood that basically they can leave earlier. But again, that was a decision, a joint decision, and this decision, I think, only strengthened Russian-Azerbaijani relations. And as you know, yesterday I was in Russia, and that's why we rescheduled the time of our meeting. I returned at 2:30 a.m. this morning, so that's why I asked you to have meeting, not in the morning. So I'm sure that this decision strengthened our relations. And also public perception or public appreciation of bilateral relations, because it demonstrates that when countries have normal channels of communication, when they respect each other, when they cooperate, when they don't do anything against each other, they can find agreement on the most sensitive issues. And this example is a clear demonstration of that. And yesterday, once again, we reconfirmed the strategic substance of relations between Russia and Azerbaijan, and this is in the benefit of our country, I'm sure in the benefit of Russia and in the benefit of the region. Thank you.
Craig Oliphant, Senior Advisor, Foreign Policy Center, United Kingdom.
Thank you, Mr. President, for taking the time in a packed schedule really to share your insights with us. Craig Oliphant from the Foreign Policy Centre in London. And please let me echo the appreciation expressed already by others to you and the organisers for this really invaluable opportunity to meet and for such a timely and important discussion. My question already partly covered, but could you comment further on the current outlook for border delimitation involving not only the return of the villages, as we've heard, but also the more complex issue of the exclaves. And obviously, we've all been following very closely the very welcome announcements from last week. But how do you assess the prospects for implementation now, moving forward, and the knock-on effect for the overall framework agreement? You mentioned a moment ago on COP29, coming out of the peace process, and I wondered if I can turn that proposition into a question. Do you see the actual holding of COP29 in November as a propitious backcloth for further progress on reaching an outline agreement in the peace process, a kind of push-pull dynamic in action through 2024? Thank you.
Thank you. I think it is absolutely realistic to reach an agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia before COP29, at least agreement on basic principles. I think this also is an option, to agree on the basic principles and then to spend time more on details of the wording. But even the drafts can be ready. I think for that, both sides just need to work hard and maybe to have many sessions of meetings, not for one day, but maybe for several days. Delimitation and peace agreement are two separate issues. And I think that it will be wrong in order to combine them and to make dependent one on another. For a very simple reason. Our border with Armenia, something around 1,000 kilometers, maybe more, maybe less. Biggest part of that border was under occupation for 30 years. From Kalbajar, from Murov Mountains to the Aras River. It's around close to 500 kilometers. In Soviet times, even when we had administrative borders, but some part of the administrative border between Armenian Soviet Republic and Azerbaijan Soviet Republic was not identified. Biggest part of the border is absolutely uninhabited, and the height of the mountains is 3,500 kilometers, and 9 months a year it is covered with the snow. So it's a really very difficult terrain. So from practical point of view, to delimitate this border within a short period of time is not possible. Another two examples of the regional issues. Azerbaijan and Georgia, two friendly countries, and Armenia and Georgia, also two friendly countries, could not delimitate their border for more than 30 years. And not because, as I said, we have kind of problems, no. Both Armenia and Azerbaijan have friendly relations with Georgia, but just because it's a complicated issue. Our border with Georgia, I mean those segments of the border which have been agreed is about 70% only. So it's a slow process. It is very process which needs a high level of accuracy. Therefore, if we wait until the border between Armenia and Azerbaijan is delimited and then sign peace agreement, so we will need maybe 30 years or more. So our suggestion is to separate these two issues. And saying that, don't want someone to misinterpret our position or, how to say, produce speculations. Azerbaijan and Armenia, when agreed on declaration of October 2022, clearly demonstrated that we will base our relations on Almaty Declaration, which is 1991, which is well known. And second, we said that we do not have territorial claims to Armenia in case they don't have territorial claims to Azerbaijan. And we demonstrated it to Armenia that if they continue to have territorial claims to Azerbaijan, we will have territorial claims to Armenia. And what will be the result of that, I think now everybody understands. After they lifted publicly territorial claims to Azerbaijan and recognized Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan, of course, from our side, there will be no territorial claims to Armenia. Therefore, I just wanted to make it clear because sometimes those who are situated far away from here and wants to behave as more Armenians than Armenians themselves want to misinterpret our policy and our steps. Our policy and position is based only on pragmatism. The beginning of the limitation from the occupied villages of Kazakh was our proposal, and we told Armenian side that if they really want to demonstrate that they're ready to move on that, they should do it, because these are the villages which were inhabited. It is not some uninhabited hills which can be contested. It was inhabited by Azerbaijanis and were occupied. One of them was occupied even during the time of Soviet Union in 1990. Actually, that's when the war started against us. And the fourth of them was occupied in 1992, already after collapse of the Soviet Union. And I think around 10 or 12 kilometers of our state border already is considered to be delimited. And this is a significant moment. And it is not by chance that many regional and non-regional countries already expressed their support to that. How the process will continue, we'll see. As I said previously, both sides demonstrated constructiveness. Both sides understand the sensitivity of this issue and at the same time commitment to international law. And I think if the same approach is applied at a later stage, we can move faster. There is also one issue which we always raise, also from point of view of pragmatism, that the border should be, of course, delimited based on principles, but at the same time there are such parts of that border which create problems for both sides. It concerns the roads, it concerns sometimes security mechanisms, the visibility of the depths of the territory of each other. Therefore, we must be creative. We should not stick to the line and just go like a blind cat on that line. No, we take the line as a basis, but we must be reasonable and agree on such a border that will be safe and secure for both sides and will be comfortable for both sides. Though, as I said, biggest part of the border and surroundings is not inhabited places, but there are parts where people live close to each other, and one of them was exactly the territory of that 4 villages where the distance between the settlements may be several hundred meters or maybe less. And when we raise this issue of 4 villages, and we raise it actually right after the Second Karabakh War, we never forgot about them. The issue of exclaves is a different story because it's more complicated, because this exclave situated, of course, in the territory surrounded by other countries, therefore they must be addressed during the process of delimitation. If Armenian side wants to address them now at the second stage, we are ready. If they want to address later, we are also ready. After delimitation is finished and immediately demarcation is done now in that area of 4 villages of Kazakh region, I think both sides, 2 commissions on delimitation must agree about the next steps. We don't want this issue to be a kind of an isolated episode. We want to continue on the path of delimitation, and I would suggest to start maybe from the easiest part. If the Armenian side wants to start with the most difficult part, like exclaves, we're also ready for that.
Stanislav Prichin, Head of Central Asia Sector, Imam Aras, Russian Federation.
Mr. President, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time. My question lost a little bit value after your comprehensive answer on energy balance of Azerbaijan, but anyway, I will try. My question about nuclear energy, because from the point of view of ecological damaging, probably this is one of the most secure kind of energy sources, especially taking into account that even recycling of solar panels usually costs very high price, and at the same time it's very difficult to organize this process without damaging environment. Meanwhile, we see now the real breakthrough in nuclear energy from the point of view of using, for example, spent fuel from old style reactors for new reactors, so fast neutrons. So Russian Rosatom is one of the leading companies here, and from this perspective, especially taking into account that gas resources is huge in Azerbaijan, but they are not endless. And from the point of view of long-term environmental issues, does Azerbaijan consider the possibility of using low-power reactors or generally nuclear power plants as the possible answer for long-term demands for energy? Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've been approached by Rosatom with different ideas, and now we are in the process of consultations with them. As you correctly mentioned, having huge deposits of natural gas, which is considered to be the cleanest fossil fuel energy source, and also renewables, we feel ourselves on the safe side. We actually, even now, we are exporting electric energy. We have swap operations with Russia. We, throughout the year, export and import to Russia and from Russia almost the same volume of electric energy. But also we export electric energy to Georgia and through Georgia to European destinations. So for domestic consumption, we will not need additional sources. Second argument is that for us it could be interesting from point of view of technological development and preparation of specialists, and also to plan a long-term strategy of our energy policy. Therefore, from this point of view, we are interested in evaluating this potential, especially, as you mentioned, with the new technologies. It is now much more attractive and safe than ever before. Important part is about the cost and who will cover the cost. With respect to renewable energy projects, which I already mentioned, all of them are financed and will be financed by foreign investors. In other words, Azerbaijan will not invest a dollar in that. Of course, if local companies want to be co-investors, of course it is possible, but not Azerbaijani state. What we will invest in only is the energy grid, because we need to strengthen our energy grid to be able to absorb thousands of megawatts of wind and solar. With respect to nuclear, usually it is the host country who pays the bills, and it is very costly. So from economic point of view, I think it would not be wise now to enter this kind of arrangement, even if it is a kind of a loan arrangement. If it's a loan, anyway, you will have to repay. From point of view of environmental protection, yes, we are, of course, in favor of environmentalism, but not to that stage to spend several billions for something which you can get free of charge using the financing from other sources. So this is actually the position of Azerbaijan. We do not close the door, but at the same time, we are not pursuing a proactive policy in that respect. We are in the phase of evaluation, and of course, important part will be related to the markets, because even now, in order to get to the premium market, we need to have a long, long way and to build thousands of kilometers of transmission lines, including one beneath the Black Sea. So for export markets, it can work. For domestic consumption, problematic.
George Gvimbradze, Director of News and Current Affairs, Georgian Public Broadcaster.
Mr. President, thank you so much for your time, and I would like to express my appreciations toward the organizers to invite me here and for this really very interesting opportunity. Let me remain within our mutual region, and my question will be about our regional cooperation. This morning, during the discussions with the students, there were a lot of talks about the stability and security as the major conditions for development. And this is what really badly needed in our region. On one hand, we all have pragmatic positions to join our efforts within the region, even to develop the joint energy capabilities. For example, you have these plans for the green energy along with the traditional energy resources you mentioned. Armenia has its nuclear capabilities, Georgia with its water resources, and region at all, you mentioned these capabilities of the energy transfer. On the other hand, you were the initiator with the President Erdogan of Turkey back in 2020, back in 2020 about the format, the 3+3, the peace agreement with Armenia, you mentioned it is hopefully on its way. But despite all the pragmatic thoughts, what can you say about the sustainable stability and security? Do you believe it is really possible in our region with, let's say, so quite complicated relationships among the possible players of any regional cooperation? I mean, it is not sustainable to speak about development of one particular country in this very complicated region. We need sustainable regional cooperation And what could be, in your opinion, the sustainable platform for this kind of cooperation inside our region? Thank you.
I think that if we put an end to a long-lasting confrontation between Azerbaijan and Armenia and sign a peace agreement, very soon, I think what you say can turn into reality. Because actually the potential of the countries of the Southern Caucasus is already known, and we already know which can be, what areas we can work together. You mentioned area of electric energy and correctly identifying the potential of free countries. Yes, it is true, but if we add here the natural gas cooperation, for instance, between Azerbaijan and Georgia, we will see that it is also mutually beneficial. And today Georgia is 100% on the safe side with respect to natural gas supply, and year after year the consumption due to the growth of economy and industry in Georgia is growing, and year after year we increase our supply, and now I think it reached already 3 billion cubic meters, and it's almost 100% of the gas supply to Georgia, which comes from Azerbaijan. Potentially Armenia can also be a recipient of Azerbaijani gas, especially taking into account that gas price for Georgia is very friendly and very preferential. And from point of view of proximity, from point of view of infrastructure, of course, it could be natural to have this kind of cooperation. When we were talking earlier about Zangezur corridor, we didn't mention that we see it not only as a railroad or highway connection, but also potential communication, potential cable, because one of the electric cable to have to expand our export capacity can go through Armenia, and potentially it can be even a gas pipeline, because today we, in order to supply Nakhchivan with natural gas, we have arrangement with Iran, so we're actually getting gas from Iran to Nakhchivan. Now we are building another pipeline, we finance it from Turkey to Nakhchivan, and that will be Azerbaijani gas. But it is like touch your left ear with the right hand. You know. If it goes through Armenia, it will be beneficial to all. It will save a lot of costs. And many other issues like that. I know that Armenia wants to become a part of the Black Sea energy cable because of extra energy capacity, but they cannot because relations with Azerbaijan are not settled. And there are 4 countries, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Romania, and Hungary, and Bulgaria, which is joining, and that's it. So there's no way, and it is a consensus decision. So peace agreement is a starting point. Should we plan our post-peace agreement future? Of course we should. And we several times discussed this with Georgian colleagues, the possibility of a trilateral consultations, just to start consultations on the issues of practical importance, transportation, energy, potential trade relations, but all the time Armenian side refused, and Georgian colleagues know it very well. Regional cooperation with good relations with regional countries. I think this is the best scenario for the Southern Caucasus. We have, by the way, trilateral format of cooperation of Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Turkey. And ministers meet, different ministers of different, ministries meet regularly. So all this is absolutely possible, but we need to have a breakthrough on peace agreement. Frankly speaking, neither Georgia nor Azerbaijan today faces any kind of difficulties with respect to its energy security or transportation security. The country which lacks it is Armenia. And for me, frankly speaking, is a big question why they oppose Zangezur corridor so fiercely, why they consider that this is a danger. They have kind of a phobia which I cannot explain. They even speak against the word corridor. They think that corridor means violation of sovereignty. Well, when we speak about north-south transportation corridor which crosses Azerbaijan, we don't have these phobias. Corridor is well-known international word. So when they hear Zangezur corridor, they become almost insane. So it is very strange. But again, we need to think about the future, and I think you raise important issues to think and to plan post-peace treaty development. And here also I invite our colleagues and participants to maybe think about that. Maybe on the level of some informal meetings in Georgia to organize kind of a session, a seminar on that, just to see what could be the potential. Because now we only can assume what can happen, but maybe there can be many more things which we even do not think about. So we treat it positively. We think that regional processes must be taken care of by regional countries. And by the way, this excellent example which we discussed of delimitation of and return of 4 Kazakh villages demonstrates that when we work together on bilateral track, we can achieve good results.
Hélène Vassilina, President and Founder, Trastevere Forum Initiative, France.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. President. It's an honor to be here and come back to Azerbaijan. Very pleased.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, but I think we're going to add some more on if you allow me, because I think most of the questions you already answered. Of course, the big question is, what do you hope to achieve with the COP? But I think you've already answered most of that, right?
Right.
And then how can Azerbaijan combine energy security, supply and demand, and sustainable economic and social, ESG, development and investments to achieve the UN 2030 goals? If I may add just a little bit to that, Mr. President, if you could address maybe some education issues, and how are you preparing the next generation of young students that we met at ADA to meet the challenges that are coming? Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I think that being here in ADA is a good illustration of educational policy, and really it is absolutely clear for everyone that the best investment is in education and in a young generation. We're trying to do it. For us, it's one of the main priorities. And we have special programs with our international partners, a special presidential program of training of our young generation in the leading international universities. At the same time, high level of education in Azerbaijan also is a priority. So we try to combine both. And now having that presidential program of financing of education abroad, at the same time we mainly concentrate on domestic potential. And probably you know that soon already we will have a separate building for Azerbaijan Italian University, also on the foundation of ADA. Actually, it's already started its activity, but construction is going on. We have Azerbaijan French University here for many years, and also 2 universities from Russian Federation, State University and Medical Academy. With respect to sustainable development and energy, I think our economic performance and social programs clearly demonstrate that we used benefits from oil and gas in order to have a fair distribution, in order to tackle the issues of unemployment and poverty. So when we started our energy cooperation and we started to receive first revenues from oil sales, the level of poverty in Azerbaijan was close to 50%. So every second person was poor, and among the refugees, it was more than 75%. So you can imagine the situation. So now we reduced it to the level of 5%, and the same is with unemployment. Social infrastructure, large-scale construction, now in Karabakh, but before it was everywhere, modern hospitals, clinics, universities, special program for construction of schools. So social infrastructure was one of the most important. Issues related to employment always are in the center of our attention because our population is growing. So year after year we have tens of thousands of new citizens, and therefore the issues with employment is something which we must always be very attentive and not to be relaxed when we see that unemployment rate is low. But if you don't address the issue of development, it will be difficult, especially now with the fourth industrial revolution, where many specialities and professions will be not needed any longer. So we will face a serious challenge. So we need to prepare our young generation for new jobs which do not exist now but will emerge in 2-3 years. And special attention we pay to vocational training. We now have a special program of opening of vocational centers all over the country with respect to the kind of climatic conditions or kind of economic development of the regions. For instance, in touristic destinations, we open vocational touristic schools, in other parts, industrial. So it's a combination of elements, but with the main objective, of course, to keep the level of literacy as high as it is today, which is absolute, and to train young generations so they can contribute to the development of the country. I remember when I launched first time the program of sending young people abroad. There was some ideas that we need to take a kind of a commitment from them that they will come back. Otherwise, we will spend a lot of money and they will just stay where they study. I said, no. I said, we need to create such a condition in our country that they prefer to come back. So now when I see that absolute majority of those who've been trained in the United States, in Britain, in other European countries, come back, so this is an indicator that we are on the right track. So we need to work even harder so that young generation of Azerbaijan do not leave their country. Because this is one of the problems for many countries in the post-Soviet area, that young generation prefer to leave, and then you just face depopulation. We have growth of population. Some countries have different problem. I don't know which is worse. I think ours is better because the more people you have in the country, the more powerful you are. But you have to provide these people with jobs, with housing, with decent conditions, with healthcare, and that's what we are doing. And absolute majority of the assets we got from oil and gas sales we channeled into social sector. Thank you.
Michael Reynolds, Associate Professor, Co-Director, Program in History and Practice of Diplomacy, Princeton University, United States.
Thank you again, Mr. President, for taking the time to meet with us. And of course, thank you to the University, in particular, its rector, Ambassador Pashai, for making this possible, as well as our visit tomorrow. As a professor, I'm very gratified to hear that you're giving so much thought to education in Azerbaijan and the future of its youth. And earlier today, we met a number of outstanding Azerbaijani students, and I was quite impressed by the quality of the conversation. So I'm very glad to hear that. Given that you've just have just returned from Moscow and meeting with Vladimir Putin, I wanted to follow up on the question posed by my colleague from Japan. As you know, as we all know, Russia for over 200 years has played a very important role in this region, has been an important power. That now may be changing as it's drawing down its military presence. It's peacekeepers from Azerbaijan, and it seems that it's also drawing down its military presence in Armenia. So one question is, at the same time, there are some other outside powers that perhaps are trying to replace Russia in the region. And I'd be curious to hear more of your thoughts on the future of Russia's role in the South Caucasus, and if you'd like to comment on the role of other outside powers in the South Caucasus, and what do you think might be, how might this play out? What sorts of benefits might it bring to Azerbaijan in the region? What sorts of dangers might those powers bring? Thank you.
Thank you. Russia is a neighbor of Azerbaijan and a country with which we have very active cooperation in different areas. And yesterday, during the meeting with President Putin, we broadly discussed these issues, our economic cooperation, particularly in the area of transportation. Of course, a big part is cooperation in humanitarian area. And we have more than 300 Russian schools in Azerbaijan, and people who prefer to study in Russian schools, they choose that. So a lot which we share in common, and of course as a regional, also regional and Caucasian country, because part of the Caucasus is within Russian boundaries. Of course, Russia will never leave this region because it is in this region. And I think that all countries of the Southern Caucasus must be interested in having good relations with Russia based on mutual respect, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and mutual interests. I think example of Azerbaijan really demonstrates that this is possible. And by the way, this was also one of the topics which we discussed yesterday with my Russian colleague, that we managed to elaborate such a format of cooperation which it is mutually beneficial. There are certain phobias, there are certain stereotypes, certain propaganda, but I think in the case of Azerbaijan, you can see that it is too much exaggerated. You can protect your sovereignty, your independence, not formal, but real, your independent policy, and be in good relations with Russia. And this is absolutely possible. Just look at Russian-Azerbaijani relations. And by the way, we discussed it there. There are many more peoples in former Soviet Union which are closer to Russia, either on ethnic or confessional ground. But look at their relations with Russia and our relations. So I'm sure that these positive trends will continue, and Azerbaijan is playing an important role in the Caucasus, in the Southern Caucasus, and this role is growing, and it's only to the benefit. With respect to others who want to come, we need to treat it, of course, with special attention, and to properly measure our resources, I mean Azerbaijan, how we can address or influence this process. For us, the main concern, as you can imagine, is potential revanchist trends and existing, basically, revanchist trends in Armenia. And we have full right to be concerned because Armenia launched aggression against us, occupied our territory, expelled million people from their homes, looted our territories and devastated everything, destroyed 20% of the territory. So we have full right to be very seriously concentrated on everything what is happening in Armenia. And it is not that we are interfering into their internal affairs or into their relations with some other countries which are situated far away. Not at all. We never interfere in any country's internal affairs, and all our neighbors know it. But it is a matter of our national security. We cannot sit and wait, seeing how France, India, and Greece are weaponizing Armenia against us, and do it openly, demonstratively, and as if trying to prove something to us. We cannot just sit and wait, and we openly express this position to Armenian government and to those who want to take care of Armenia now. We will have to take serious measures if we see a serious threat to us. So far, those weapons which are being delivered to Armenia, some of them are dangerous, some of them are not, but this is not critical. So my message to Armenia is, and once again using this platform, don't do it. And again, my message absolutely should not be considered as something arrogant, no. Something which is not unaffordable. Again, no, I'm not going to interfere into whatever they do. It's their life and their country. But when they build military power against us, when they concentrate sometimes their troops on our border, we cannot be silent. This is now our security. And we have a right to be concerned. So my message to them and to those who want to use them as a forepost against Azerbaijan, don't do it. No matter how many weapons will be sent to Armenia, they have no chances against us. And Second Karabakh War demonstrated it. For only 44 days, we climbed the mountains which ordinary people cannot climb just on hiking, you know. And we did it with weapons, with light weapons, and destroyed the army completely. And then several hours of anti-terror operation when we put an end to separatism also demonstrate to them. And we, again, have no bad intentions against Armenia. We don't have any claims to their territory, but they should understand that first, these weapons will not help them. Second, this is dangerous. And my duty is to warn them and also to warn those who is behind them, who is manipulating them, that this is really dangerous and they should listen to what I say because they know that they should listen to what I say. My recommendation is that, and also, apart from that, Armenia can be another candidate for global confrontation. We have, unfortunately, these cases close to our borders. So they can be used for global confrontation between West and Russia. And if it's the best scenario for them, it's for them to decide. But that could be a catastrophe. That could be a catastrophe. And those today who promise them ultimate and continuous support will run away if the first bullet is shot on the border. I'm absolutely sure. And those so-called European peace observers, which are retired military and policemen, who use binocle diplomacy against us and demonstrate, I don't know what they want to demonstrate, they must be grateful to us that we do not respond. I'm sure they will run away if something serious happens. So this is how we see this situation. And again, the way to security and stability in the region goes through Azerbaijan-Armenian normalization. They must learn, I mean Armenia, to be a normal neighbor and to put an end to territorial claims to their neighbors. We see some positive trends, but this is not enough. It is only words, and we know how they can change their mind. In 2019, they were saying that Karabakh is Armenia, and that was a trigger for the war, and now they say Karabakh is Azerbaijan. I don't know, maybe in 5 years' time, when they're supplied with deadly weapons, they will say again Karabakh is Armenian. What should we then do? We cannot wait. So thank you for raising this issue, and I think it was a good opportunity for me to send a message to Yerevan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it's more than 2 hours that you spent together with us, and you covered more than 12 questions.
12.
And we have quite a substantial number of the questions in our list, but I know that your schedule is quite busy. If you can allow us to take two questions.
If the audience is not tired, we can continue. I will try to be short in my answers.
Yes. Ilham Aliyev, President, Conflict Prevention and Early Warning Center, Romania.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for inviting me here, and also I should congratulate you for having the retreat of the Russian troops quite earlier and not paying at least the fees that some of us paid for seeing them living tens of years after the moment of the occupation. So my question is related to energy security, to the cable that you've already had the opportunity of invoking, that the project with you that we are sharing for clean energy to be sent and shipped to Romania, Hungary, and so on. So actually, as you know, we have another project with the data cable, so a number of projects on the water. And since the wider Black Sea region is quite complicated nowadays, and the security of the underwater infrastructure is also at stake, I would kindly ask you if you can comment on, or if you have ideas how we can improve this part of the security that is also concerning, yes, green energy, moving and transport that, but also the security of the Black Sea region. Thank you.
I think that this issue primarily must be addressed by Black Sea countries, because our responsibility probably will end close to the shores of the Black Sea. And if we make analogies with our fossil fuel projects, it was agreed that every country is responsible for their segment of the pipeline. And for instance, in Azerbaijan, we never had any penetration, illegal penetration, stealing from the pipeline, or any other unpleasant events. So each country, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Turkey, on their territory, they provided security, and the same is with the Southern Gas Corridor. So now with the green energy cable, I'm sure that Black Sea countries will take care of that. We cannot be helpful because we are not physically present there. But I think that it should not be a subject of kind of attack or intervention or penetration, because it is not against anyone. This cable is just in the interest of all the countries of the Caspian and Caucasus and Black Sea. But again, of course, I'm sure that corresponding countries will take care of that on that part of the Black Sea which belongs to their jurisdiction.
Laszlo Vaza, Chief Advisor, Senior Research Fellow, Hungarian Institute of International Affairs.
Mr. President, thank you very much to get the opportunity to be here again. Thanks for the organizers. I am very grateful to be here and raise a question. Some of my questions were answered, but I have one left, a short one. How do you see the chances for securing Turkmen natural gas for Europe through Azerbaijan?
First of all, if this decision is made, this decision must be made by Turkmenistan. If they decide to build a Trans-Caspian gas pipeline going under the Caspian and then through Azerbaijan to Europe, they will approach us. So far, they didn't. And of course, we will not initiate this project because usually the country which is the owner of resources is implementing the project. For instance, when it was Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan or Southern Gas Corridor, it was Azerbaijan which initiated and was a kind of a coordinator, and all the host government agreements and agreements with off-takers were negotiated and signed by Azerbaijan. So I do not remember the case when the transit country could be could finance or initiate that. So far, we did not get any messages from Turkmenistan, therefore I cannot comment on that. There are a lot of discussions about that, but my advice is just to evaluate a variety of factors. First, who will pay for that? Second, what will be the non-corporative financing, taking into account what I already said about restrictions of European financial institutions to finance fossil fuel projects? Who will be the recipients of this gas? And what will happen after the gas is delivered to Azerbaijan? Because today, Southern Gas Corridor is fully packed. So we today think about expansion of TANAP and expansion of TAP. So if somebody thinks that building a pipeline under the Caspian makes the deal done, it is not. Because either there must be another pipeline all the way down from Baku to Europe, or I don't know. So a lot of questions and no answers. Therefore, my comments is based on that.
Jakub Korezba, non-resident fellow, Center for Eurasian Studies, Poland.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a pleasure to be here again. A pleasure and a true joy of a scholar and theoretician who can see the history happening. Because my deep feeling is that what we are witnessing here is the future in the making. You know, I come from Poland, a country that has and always had interesting neighbors, and this is what makes our two countries similar to each other despite the geographical distance. And this is not exactly an optimistic constatation, because as we could see during last few months, not all of your neighbors are interested in peace, progress, cooperation, and prosperity. And therefore, my question to you is, do you think that the unconstructive stance of your Armenian partner during the peace process is simply a bargaining, a kind of theater, a part of the negotiating position? Or is it something deeper, long-term, a strategy? And if this continues, is there a plan B in case Yerevan keeps rejecting the peace and engages external forces to destabilize this region? And I know that Azerbaijan has a lot of strategic patience. You proved it more than once. But what if your patience is ignored and abused? Is there an alternative strategy for such a case? Thank you.
Well, alternative strategy can only be continuing the arms race. We have no other choice. It is not what is preferable, especially taking into account that we need a lot of financing to rebuild the liberated territories. But if we don't reach a peace agreement, that will mean that Armenia, as you mentioned, is planning something different. And they're using this process only to win time. We have quite substantial reasons to believe that this is the case, though we are not sure, taking in account the history when we were, since 1992 until 2020, in the process of negotiations, but actually Armenia used these negotiations only in order to cement the occupation and to make the de facto occupation eternal. That was their plan. And now when we not only analyze more, but when we hear a lot of domestic politics in Armenia, we once again get convinced that they were not planning to liberate even 1 centimeter of our territory, including the current government. Because the way how the current government is behaving should not mislead anyone. And when I hear from some Armenian supporters in the West that look how brave they behave, I always say that, but what was the motivation for their bravery? If not for 2020, September, November, today they would have continued to shout in Hankendi, Karabakh is Armenia. So we made them brave. They make brave steps, if they can be considered, not because they're so constructive, but because they're scared. Let's be very open and frank. They're scared. And in order not to be scared, they need to have peace with us. And we will see, because, as I said, the factor of so-called Nagorno-Karabakh is out. They agreed that it will not be in the peace agreement. So that means that the main obstacle is not here any longer. And if they stick to some not so important terminology, and we will just clearly see that they want again to use this time in order to get more weapons and then to attack us again. But we will not give them this chance because it's absolutely clear. And once again, I want to say those who try to direct them against us, they're making a big mistake. So we already have a very, very bitter, how to say, experience of almost 30 years of occupation. And we'll plan our future based on a real situation. So this is how we see the process. So I think by the end of the year, it will be absolutely clear. So if the peace agreement is not signed, then, as I said, arms race to be continued. And, well, if they don't want peace agreement, we can live without peace agreement. But will it be comfortable for them to live next to us without peace agreement? I don't think so. So I think it's mainly in their interest, more than in our interest, to agree on the terms which are based on international law. And in these proposals and these comments which we sent, there is nothing which cannot be accepted. Only they must be reasonable and not to demand unachievable. And also important is for them to know, and for those who support them, that the 30 years of occupation and the result of the Second Karabakh War should not be ignored and no one should behave as if that never happened. The results of the war always influenced the post-war situation. And in our case, we did not take advantage of our victory, not at all. We stopped, as I promised, during the war. And I said, give us a date when you leave our territory and we will stop. And we stopped. And that's already almost 4 years. And then in Karabakh, when they started to demonstratively ignore us, when they held so-called presidential elections in Nagorno-Karabakh and elected so-called new president, when a criminal oligarch from Moscow came there and started to, behave as if he is a prime minister of a country, and also financing terrorism and also spreading threats to different people, they should have known that we will not tolerate that. And we many times delivered a message to them directly and through Brussels and through other channels, that don't play with fire. We can restore sovereignty anytime and no one will stop us. And that's happened. It lasted several hours, not 23. 23 was needed just to finalize the formalities. It lasted several hours, less than 10 hours, and it was done. So that was a lesson to them. Second Karabakh War was a lesson. And again, we did it, and we didn't do anything else. Who could have stopped us then if we had some terrible plans as some people in some Western European capitals try to present? Who could have stopped us then? These retired French policemen on the border, could they stop us? Of course not. We stopped ourselves because we don't want territory of Armenia. We want only to be under our control completely and forever.
Carlo Marino, founder and director, Euroasiatica News, Italy.
Mr. President, thank you for the honor you give me. And I am a friend of Azerbaijan because I am also vice president of Italy-Azerbaijan Association in Milan. My question is, what is your opinion on the current state of relations between Italy and Azerbaijan? And if are there opportunities for collaboration between our two countries in the fields of green economy? Thank you very much.
Relations are excellent. Italy is one of our closest partners and friends in European Union. And not only, it's a good and reliable partner. We have a very active political contacts. And my visits to Italy and the visit of President of Italy to Azerbaijan is a good illustration of our partnership. Today, Italy is one of the leading countries in activities in Karabakh and Eastern Zangezur. Actually, it is the second after Turkey company with respect to the number of companies who work now. And they work on a very important projects on cultural heritage, restoration, for instance, of the destroyed palace of Karabakh Khan in Agdam. They work on the restoration of mosques in different liberated cities. So economic cooperation is excellent. Italy is our main trading partner. And oil from Azerbaijan makes a substantial part of Italian oil consumption. And also, I think Azerbaijan is second or third gas supplier to Italy. So I can say only excellent, nothing more. And also the Italian-Azerbaijani University, when other and 5 leading Italian universities created a joint university, is also based on profound political and cultural ties. On green energy, we'll be happy to work with Italian companies. So far, we did not start, but the potential is here. And by the way, in the energy area, Italian companies are our main partners. For instance, a famous company, Ansaldo, is a supplier of turbines to our being now constructed 1,000, almost 300 megawatt power station in Mingicevic. Italian, other companies, Mer Tecnamont was a contractor of the big industrial site and now is also helping us in renovation of our refinery. So it's really very solid foundation and very diverse relations which are growing year after year. And thank you for naming yourself a friend of Azerbaijan. We have many, many friends of Azerbaijan in Italy. And I'd like to ask you to convey my best greetings to all of them.
Thank you very much.
Ambassador Abdulaziz Al-Hour, Director, Diplomatic Institute of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Qatar.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Actually, I would like to ask what are the key challenges Azerbaijan is facing in balancing economic development with environmental sustainability, especially that Azerbaijan is a hydrocarbonic economy-based country. I know that you partially answered this question. Maybe you would like to add some other key challenges as well.
Yes, we managed already to a certain extent to diversify our economy, and now oil and gas makes less than half of our GDP. But our export is something like 95% is oil and gas. So our main, one of the main objectives is now to diversify our export. It will not be easy because, as I already said, gas production and export will grow. And for other sectors of economy, exports, we need markets. Our problem is that we do not have easy access to European market of EU, because of certain restrictions and quotas, etc. And for us, the main market is the neighboring countries. Primarily Russia is our main market for non-energy goods, and also Turkey. And in order to diversify our export, it's not enough only to produce, we need to have access. But we are working on that. But with respect to other sectors of our economy, we have big hopes with respect to transportation. As I already said, this juncture of corridors will create a lot of economic activity. And also we consider these transportation routes not only as a facilitation and transit, but also an opportunity to build industry en route. So we hope that manufacturers from the region will come and do these projects. We now in active phase of development of the free economic zone of Alat, which is already accumulating the residents. So we are trying to do maximum what we can in order to develop other sectors of economy, because digital transformation is one of them. Industrial development is now based on more science-based approach, as I already said, with respect to the employment and fourth industrial revolution. And by the way, Davos World Economic Forum selected Azerbaijan as a regional center for, one of the regional centers for Davos World Economic Forum Fourth Industrial Revolution Center. So this also was a sign of appreciation of what we are doing. Huge potential, as we already discussed, on renewables, with 157 gigawatt of potential of only offshore. And a lot of companies now working with us. And as I said already, we need to strengthen our grid to be able to absorb all that. So I think the future is predictable.
Lauren Vinatier, Regional Advisor, Center for Humanitarian Dialogue, Switzerland, France.
Good afternoon. Yes, I can't help to make a comment. I'm working for the Center for Humanitarian Dialogue. It's a mediation organization, and I fully agree with you. The less mediators, the better for the peace process, so I may change my job at some point. I wanted to ask you a question about Turkey. I spent a lot of time in Armenia, and yes, Armenia is deadlocked and paralyzed, I would say, politically. And to what extent you will think that Azerbaijan could let Armenia building more bridges with Turkey, giving Armenia this space it needs to make steps forward?
Well, Armenia and Turkey is working now in the framework of process of normalization of relations, and we support that. And we publicly stated that we support Turkish-Armenian normalization, and you probably know that Armenia has territorial claims not only to Azerbaijan but also to Turkey, and definitely this issue also must be addressed. You know that the national symbol of Armenia is mountain Agredag, which they call Ararat, which is situated in Turkey, which I think is absolutely unacceptable, and my personal opinion is absolutely wrong to send such a message to their society. I remember that the previous president of Armenia, Sergej Sarkisyan, once was asked at a meeting with, I think, some young members of his party or something like that, that now we liberated Artsakh, so-called. So what about Western Armenia? That's how they called, and some of them still called, Turkey. What about our lands when they will be liberated? And he said that we did our job, and this is up to you to do it. So this is not something which I invent. This you can find on the internet. That's what he said. And that's what they thought. And this is, I think, the biggest tragedy of Armenian society, that they really thought that they can separate that part of Turkey from Turkey and adjust it to Armenia. So they overestimated themselves, and this is the biggest problem. Now they want to normalize, and we support it, but they need to get rid of all these attributes. With respect to Azerbaijan, they need to change their constitution. And again, I'm saying that not because I want to interfere into their affairs, but because in their constitution, they have a reference to the Declaration of Independence, which says that Nagorno-Karabakh, so-called, is part of Armenia. So how can we sign a peace agreement when they have in their constitution such a reference? So when I say you need to change constitution, not because I'm arrogant or I'm just trying to be rude, no, because it's a precondition. The same, I think, should be changing of this national symbol. The mountain, Agredag, must be changed. They have a lot of mountains in Armenia. They can put, if they like, another one. But as far as I know, of course there is a coordination between Azerbaijan and Turkey on this issue, as well as on many other issues, because Turkey and Azerbaijan, I think, on global scale are the two most close to each other countries in the world. And not only the alliance declaration which unites us, but a lot of things which unites us. And it's an important factor of regional security and stability. I mean, Turkish-Azerbaijani unity. And I know that there's an established position in Azerbaijan and in Turkey that two processes must go in parallel. Turkish-Armenian rapprochement and Azerbaijan-Armenian normalization should go in parallel. This is our position. Also, this is the position of Turkish president. In could be ideal situations that one day they can be signed two agreements, peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia and normalization agreement between Armenia and Turkey with opening of all communications and putting an end to a decades-long hatred and turning the page and starting a normal development. What we hear from Yerevan officials, yes, we take note of that there must be a difference between real Armenia and mythological. Yeah? They call it historical, but I would call it mythological, because history should not be subject of manipulation. So they created the myths about the history. They, how to say, incorporated in the history historical personalities which never had any Armenian ethnic roots. So this is a historical manipulation, and they, at what point they started to believe in all those mythology. That was a tragedy, because they created mythology, they wanted the world to believe, and they started to believe themselves. And when they said that young generation of Armenians will take Turkish territory, that was a degradation of the serious psychological disease, not only of Sergic Sarkisyan, but also of those who listened to him and those who asked him this question. So now, what we expect, that Armenian government will move from words to actions, and we will judge them by their actions. And they need to understand that the Turkish-Azerbaijani alliance is as solid as a rock, and they need to take that into account now and in the future.
We have around 10 questions.
Okay, go.
Bruno Macaes, Senior Advisor, Flint Global, Portugal.
Mr. President, good afternoon. I want to ask about the European Union, which hasn't come up a lot in these conversations, maybe not a good sign for the European Union. You know that we have elections in about a month and a half, a new European Parliament, new Commission, not a new European Commission President, but a new President of the European Council, a new High Representative, maybe new Commissioner positions on defense, and important commissioners on energy. You talked a little bit about your disappointments with the European Union on questions like finance for energy projects and perhaps also trade. I want you to ask you to put your thoughts on the next 5 years of a strategic relationship with the European Union. What do you expect from them vis-à-vis Azerbaijan?
Well, our expectations is based on common sense, on understanding of the policy of European Union and what we can achieve in our bilateral relations. We never put targets which cannot be reached. Therefore, we never put a target to become a member of EU. We clearly understood and understand that this is not realistic, and it will never happen even if we will do everything what they demand. And the example of Turkey is a great illustration to that. Many countries were adopted in the European Union after Turkey became a candidate, but Turkey was not, only because population of Turkey are Muslims. And let's be very fair, and we always speak very openly, and to say that Turkey do not correspond to some criteria is absolutely groundless. So that was a factor, and we understand it, and we're also Muslims, so they will never accept us. Then why should we insist? Let us elaborate such a mechanism of cooperation which will be mutually acceptable. And I think that we were very close to that. Very close before recently, when we saw that there are a kind of attempts to make a dividing lines in the Southern Caucasus. And that was particularly why we expressed our concern with the unprecedented meeting in Brussels of President of European Commission, Secretary of State of the United States, and Armenian Prime Minister. Never in the history of this institution there was a meeting like that with anyone from former Soviet Union. Even with Ukraine and Georgia and Moldova, these kind of meetings didn't happen. But with Armenia, which is a member of Eurasian Union, which is a military ally of Russia, which has Russian military base, Russian border security on their border with Iran, Turkey, and now with Azerbaijan, which is a member of Common Defense Treaty Organization, which is kind of a NATO for this part of the world. And we had legitimate concerns about that, because we had credible information that there was a military component of that meeting, and we still believe that there was. I don't know to what degree it was materialized or not, but it is a serious concern. Plus, we know that the European Union is planning to allocate substantial finance from so-called European Peace Facility. Actually, this is a structure which finances supply of weapons. It is called Peace Facility, but it is not peace, actually. And this is, again, against us. And this is also of concern. So these are the main factors of our concern. And unfortunately, again, Armenia is interfering into our relations with other countries and institutions. My answer would not be full and completely sincere if I don't mention the person whom you mentioned, who will be substituted, the High Commissioner for Foreign Policy, who said that the European Union is a garden and the rest is a jungle. And that was a public statement. And he called all of us a jungle. Africa, Asia, Latin America. And if it was said by, say, a member of European Parliament, even the President of European Parliament, I wouldn't have been surprised, because European Parliament is one of the centers of Islamophobia and corruption, which is well known, but it is said by the person who is responsible for diplomacy of European Union. And no one in the European Commission, those who stand higher than him, no one corrected him. No one said, go, Mr. Borrell, and apologize in front of the rest of the world. You call us a jungle, okay? But your garden's trees would have dried out if not for this jungle. So how can we continue business as usual and pretend that we didn't hear? We cannot. And we say it, and I say it publicly. So these are fundamental issues. Yes, we have cooperation in energy. They asked us to help. when there was a disruption of gas supply from Russia. They came and asked us to help. And in July 2022, just several months after war in Ukraine, we signed declarations. They asked us to increase supply. We said, okay. We started to invest. We wanted to help them, and we still want to help. Anyone who wants to help can rely on us. But we must also see the adequate attitude to us and to seriously assess our concerns. And our concern is actually the security of our country and our people. We suffered from occupation, and Europe turned a blind eye on our refugees. Now they help people who moved from Karabakh to Armenia. I support it. They do a good thing to help them. 60,000 maximum, because the rest were military personnel. But what about 1 million of Azerbaijanis? Why didn't they help them? What was the reason why they didn't help them? So these are questions which we ask, and we don't have answer. So again, understanding the geopolitics of the region, we should base our steps on not on kind of expectations and perceptions, but on real situation. But at the same time, I think open discussions with all the partners, including European Union, is necessary. If they want to be more active in the Southern Caucasus, they cannot ignore Azerbaijan, the biggest country with respect to territory, population, and economic potential. If they want to ignore Azerbaijan, they will not be in the Southern Caucasus. This is clear. We are ready for cooperation, but based on mutual respect and mutual interest. That would be my answer.
Klaus Lares, Professor, Wilson Center, United States.
Thank you very much for your many exhaustive remarks. It's certainly most interesting to be here. Perhaps towards the end of the afternoon, it would be interesting to hear your views on how the Ukraine war can be resolved. The war is dragging on without any end in sight, as far as I can see. China is contributing to Russia's economy and also to its war effort. Then the US House of Congress has just passed a huge aid bill for Ukraine. And there's serious concern in Europe, as far as I understand, that if Ukraine is defeated, Putin will go further into the Baltic states, into Poland. How can the situation, which seems to be escalating, which doesn't seem to get better, how can the situation be resolved? What can Azerbaijan do? And also, maybe out of curiosity, you talked to Mr. Putin last night. Was the Ukraine war and a resolution to the war mentioned? Were any good suggestions made? Thank you.
No, yesterday we discussed only our bilateral issues and issues related to situation in the Southern Caucasus. I don't know how Russian-Ukrainian war can end. If somebody knows, probably should be nominated to the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't think that anybody knows now how it can end, but, or maybe I put it this way, when it can end, because sooner or later the wars stop. I can tell from our experience, just if it's interesting that when we signed the ceasefire agreement in May 1994, the war actually did not stop. So something similar can happen between Russia and Ukraine if they come to an agreement to stop the active phase of war. It will not be a guarantee that the war is stopped. We had, from time to time, I mean during the times of occupation, tensions on the line of contact. We had sabotage groups We had a sniper war, as it was called, and many other very dangerous episodes. And our line of contact was much shorter than today's line of contact or battle between Russia and Ukraine. So imagine that a ceasefire agreement is signed. So will be that a guarantee that peace will come? No, we waited 28 years, and after that we restored sovereignty by force. We did it because we were right and because we could have done it. And for us it was a matter of life and death, and we were not sure at that time who will step in on Armenian side. It could be different options, and none of them was pleasant for us. But we didn't think about that at that time. For us it was either we restore our sovereignty and dignity, or we should die all. That was our approach. We waited, we accumulated power, we worked on an international arena, we tried to prove our case and explain that we became a victim of aggression. But all was basically without any result. Yes, international institutions adopted resolutions, decisions, etc., but they did not materialize. There was no mechanism of implementation. So we materialized it by force. As I say, we brought peace by war. That's also an option. And we demonstrate that it is possible. So I don't have a practical answer. As I said, I think no one knows when it will stop. But even if it stops, it's not a guarantee that there'll be no recidives. What Azerbaijan can do? Nothing, absolutely. From practical point of view, nothing. And we provided humanitarian and financial assistance to Ukraine worth more than 30 million euros. We are doing reconstruction in the city of Irpin, where there is a big Azerbaijani diaspora and many social infrastructure is being restored by Azerbaijan. Nothing more. We do not supply weapons to Ukraine, though we've been asked, but we cannot. And we say it openly and publicly, and we will not. Humanitarian assistance, yes. Weapons, no. So this is my answer, and of course it's a big tragedy for two peoples who are very close to each other from ethnic point of view, from religious point of view. It's a big tragedy. And was there a chance to avoid the war? I think yes. Was there a chance for Ukrainian leaders in previous years to build normal relations with Russia? I'm absolutely sure that yes. I was just speaking about Russian-Azerbaijani relations. We are neighbors. We built strong partnership relations. We respect each other's sovereignty. We do not interfere into each other's affairs. Couldn't it have been possible between Russia and Ukraine? Of course. Russia and Ukraine are two very close peoples. Why did it happen? Who is to blame? I have my opinion, but I will keep it for myself. But I think the chance was missed in the beginning of 2000. The chance for Ukraine to build a strong state was missed. That's my personal opinion based on my experience and my knowledge. I knew and worked with all Ukrainian presidents except the first one. I'm in this chair since 2003. And when I say something, I say it because I know and I experienced, and not somebody told me something. I witnessed many episodes in Russian-Ukrainian relations. Tense, friendly, hostile, but never like what we see today, never. So this is unfortunately the tragedy situation, and people are dying every day. So must be stopped. Who can stop it? I don't know. Tried to be very open, maximum as I could afford to disclose some episodes from my memory.
Head of Turkey, Caucasus and Central Asia Department, Center for Eastern Studies, Poland.
Mr. President, thank you for great honor to be here. Frankly speaking, I heard most of the answers I would like to ask you. But anyway, let me ask about the situation in the Middle East. How risky is the conflict between Iran and Israel? Azerbaijan is a neighbor of Iran. We've got a very good relation with Israel. We've got a very deep alliance with Turkey. I guess it's what's going on in the Middle East is extremely and directly important for you. How serious is the situation? What we do?
Well, I can say probably what you know about the situation, nothing more than that. With respect to, of course, the neighborhood, yes, this is our geography, and we are used to live in this geography. And maybe for people from Europe, it could seem to be very risky, but it is our life, we cannot change it. So we are used to live in this geography and to protect our security and statehood and our lifestyle. I said many times in different audiences that in Azerbaijan we do not have serious, or actually not any serious potential risk. All the potential risks which we may face may come from abroad. And what we should do, we should keep our doors closed to troublemakers and open to loyal guests. But what we can observe is that both countries are not interested in escalation, and this is a good sign. Maybe this kind of mutual attacks maybe was necessary for both sides to understand that they should refrain from these provocative steps. And I think they demonstrated high level of wisdom in order to stop. And I think that even without advices from other sources, they would have stopped, because none of them is interested in that. It will be another devastating confrontation which neither these countries nor the peoples of these countries nor the world can afford. So do we feel some concern? Well, not more than daily, which we used to. We live in this geography where things happen, where wars always was a way how to treat your neighbor. The Caucasus, unfortunately, whether it's south or north, for centuries was an arena for wars and bloodshed. What can we do, including Azerbaijan? And so we put an end to war. By war, we have now recession, I would say. How long it will last, nobody knows. It not only depends on us. If it depends on us, it will be lasting forever. And but it does not depend only on us. Caucasus now this part of Caucasus, I mean Southern Caucasus, becomes more and more attractive for many countries, and of course location important, natural resources are important, neighborhood is important. Azerbaijan is the only country which borders Russia and Iran. No other country has this border with both of these countries. This is our life, we live it with dignity and with maximum commitment to our independence. And I think today's Azerbaijan is a good illustration that it is possible, and geography and difficulty should not be used as a pretext for complaints. You know, our geography is different from European, but this is our life, and we must live like independent country and achieve success in order to demonstrate to people of Azerbaijan that our choice and our lifestyle is the best in the region. That's what we are trying to do.
Nasir Obeidat, President, University of Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this comprehensive discussion. Again, most of my questions were answered, but still I will ask another question based on your experience with Armenia, and you have the feeling of occupation. What do you think about the suffering of people in Gaza? Can you do something? I know that you have good relation with King Abdullah II from Jordan, because here we are talking about the human factor and suffering of people, not only killing, but people they don't have food to eat, and etc. So I want to hear from you about this. Thank you.
Yes, our feelings are absolutely clear. All the people who watch this tragedy, we feel the same. We feel big sympathy with innocent victims, with families who lost their beloved ones. We feel sorrow when we see how children die. Our feelings are absolutely common to every normal person. What we can do, again, I already tried to answer this with respect to Russian-Ukrainian war, not much. We are not part of the region, and if regional countries cannot do anything, then what Azerbaijan can do? Neighboring countries, unfortunately also, they cannot do anything. So this issue, unfortunately, leads to unprecedented tragedy and truly unprecedented level of injustice. That's what I feel. But we live in the real world. We don't live in the world which is based on papers. We had paper for 28 years, the most valuable in the world, which was a resolution of UN Security Council. So what? Who cared about that? Even those who adopted those resolutions demanding Armenia to withdraw its troops, they themselves did not do anything in order to implement them. And what should be done with these resolutions? Cover ourselves with these resolutions? No. We took a rifle and went to die. That's what we did. Is it my recommendation forever? No. I'm speaking for myself as a president and commander-in-chief, and on behalf of 10 million Azerbaijanis who feel the same and share the same, and during the times of occupation and during the war and during the post-war situation. And we celebrate now already in our soil we celebrated for 4 years. This is the bitter truth of real politics and must be taken into account. Solidarity, okay. Does it work? No. Words? No. Nothing. We felt it on our skin 28 years. So what can I say? Every leader of a country or community has its own way how to tackle this issue. There are leaders who prefer to have negotiations forever. I also wanted, but then I said, enough is enough. My recommendation is not to copy what we have done. I just want to share with you. You asked what I feel, I told you, and how I see the situation. I don't want to say something which I don't believe in, saying that unity, solidarity. No. This iron fist only. Demir yumruq.
Our next question, Liliana Smith, Director General for International Affairs, Chairwoman of the Foundation Council, Hungary.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, it is a huge honor for me. My question is very short. Do you see Azerbaijan as most important bridge between Eastern and Western world, taking into account the connectivity strategy that is being implemented?
Well, most important bridge could be very, how to say, arrogant, I think, but yes, it's kind of a cultural, I would say, bridge, because our location, definitely, geography, influenced the lifestyle, the society, and the mood of the society, and we feel ourselves comfortably when we are in Europe and when we are in the eastern part of the world. We do not feel discomfort because Azerbaijani society for centuries absorbed to a large degree the values of both civilizations, of Islamic civilization and European civilization. So definitely this location dictates us to be proactive on transportation, because if we did not use this location, no one would forgive us. And we started to invest and build, and as I said, it was not enough only to build railroads or ports. We need to build bridges between countries. And I was saying many times, every country which wants to be a transit country, and now we see that the number of those who want to be transit countries is growing, first must build bridges between the countries. Because if you don't have good relations with your neighbor, immediate neighbor, and the neighbor of your neighbor, you will never be a transit country. They will bypass you. They will avoid you. So our strong relations with countries on the eastern shore of the Caspian Sea, Central Asia on one hand, Georgia, Turkey, and many European countries on the other hand, Russia and Iran on north and south. This is the reason why we talk about connectivity and this juncture north-south, east-west. If we had problems with only one of these neighbors, it would not work. And would it make our life better? Of course not. As I said, we must protect ourselves from external potential risks, and that will be a guarantee for our success, because internally, as I said, we don't have points of concern. Now geopolitical situation after Russian-Ukrainian war changed so that our geography is needed more than ever before. We were talking about north-south transportation route. This project is being discussed for more than 20 years. And as I said, in Azerbaijan, we have a railroad which can sent 6-7 million tons. Now, it is needed for our neighbors to have 15, maybe 30 million potential of this road. The same Russian-Ukrainian war led to problems on the transit through Belarus and Poland, and Middle Corridor again was more demanded as never before. Situation will change, of course, will change, and nothing is eternal. But we, with our connectivity projects, should not try to take advantage of this situative change. We must create such a platform with tariffs, with digital transportation system, with predictable, cooperation, so that this road is used even after all these sanctions and blocks are lifted. So that's what we are trying to do. Ne kadar kaldı? 5.
Kershavan Antun.
Ben de yorulup audience'ı. Yok, ben yok.
Kershavan Antun Dumovic, Senior Associate, Institute for Development and International Relations, Croatia.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. While you were speaking, I was recalling the history that we have in Croatia. We have so much in common. 20% of our territory occupied, hundreds of thousands of refugees. So I want to congratulate you and for your personal courage and the people of Azerbaijan for liberating your country. I've been coming here for more than 10 years. I can so see a new energy, and I believe that now is the right time for you actually to boom as a country. And I wish you all the success. So just a short question concerning, you mentioned the energy projects and the extension of projects TANAP and TAP. So do you have, or Azerbaijan, do you have in plan the connection to TAP pipeline, considering Ionian Adriatic pipeline, so that we could have Azerbaijani gas in Croatia? Thank you.
First of all, thank you for your kind words about our country. Appreciate it. With respect to Ionic Adriatic pipeline, there are two serious problems in front of it. First, this project is not included into European Union's project of common interest, and that's why it lacks support. Second, the volume of natural gas which can be consumed by 3 countries of that project is very low. In order to build such an infrastructure project in a very difficult terrain, because you know better than me that it is mountains, etc. So that's the reason why it did not so far materialize. Is there alternative? Yes, there is alternative, and we are working on that. Of course, if anybody will build Ionic Adriatic pipeline, we will start supply, definitely, because we have additional gas resources. But if not, access to Croatia and from Croatia to your neighbors in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Montenegro can be achieved through Hungary, because we already started gas supply to Hungary, I think, several months ago. And this is, I think, the way how to have access to your market. And as far as I know, representatives of the governments of Croatia and Azerbaijan are already in the phase of consultations about that. So I think that this is a more realistic way, because, as I said already, we are physically in Hungary. And we actually also, through Bulgaria, already entered the market of Serbia. which can also be a route to the neighborhood. So I think we need to explore those options which can be realized sooner and with less costs.
John Roberts, Energy Security Specialist, Ms. Singhs, United Kingdom.
Thank you very much for having us here today, and your efforts on the peace process must be extraordinarily difficult to know just how you and the Armenians are going to reach a settlement. So therefore it's very encouraging to hear that you think that you're going to manage to do that relatively soon. So thank you for that. Question I want to ask is actually about COP and the energy transition. And it's a simple one. What do you think the relative importance is between renewables on the one hand and fossil fuels, particularly natural gas, in the pursuit of Azerbaijan's own energy transition?
I think I already touched upon this issue about the proper balance between fossil fuel and renewables. And Azerbaijan, I think, is a good example of that, because having a huge deposits of natural gas, which will be enough for us for at least 100 years to supply ourselves and the markets, we at the same time attracted investments for renewables. It was just I have to say, big a gift for us that we have sun and wind. And as inhabitants of Baku sometimes complain about the wind because it blows day and night, something like 300 days a year. But now it will bring not only fresh air from the Caspian Sea, but also clean energy. So I think that in several years, we will demonstrate what I say on the ground, because I already mentioned about the projects which are already in the pipeline and more to come, and we'll be among the leading countries with respect to transition from fossil fuel to green energy. We plan to supply our electricity demand with renewables and to have natural gas mainly for export for those who need it. Thank you.
Rachel Rudolph, Assistant Professor of Social Science, Researcher, Beijing Institute of Technology, United States.
Hi, Mr. President. I'm glad to be here again for a second time. I want to ask a very specific question. Building on what Professor Chiang had mentioned with respect to Azerbaijan-China relations, I'm interested in, more specifically, electronic vehicle development in Azerbaijan. And I know that that was a conversation that was just discussed last month. So when talking about the development of Azerbaijan's indigenous EV market, what role do you see China playing in that specifically? Thank you.
Thank you. We consider China as our main partner in this process. We held very productive negotiations with several Chinese companies, and I think the decision has already been made in favor of BYD, which will start soon manufacturing of electrical buses, and not only. Also, I think the contract either signed or soon will be signed in order to purchase substantial number of electric buses from BYD as a first step in our cooperation. And also, I think, as far as I remember, there is also a guaranteed number of electric buses which our state will purchase from manufacturing in Azerbaijan. So our plans with respect to electric vehicles was not only to buy them, but to create a manufacturing here, because we already have several factories which assemble vehicles from different producers. We will need probably hundreds of buses, but also taking into account that BYD also is very famous in different types of electric vehicles. I think for the market, it will also be a big advantage. So it's already done deal. I am not sure about the formalities, but decision has been made. So we're looking forward to, receive the first buses probably before COP, and that will be another, I think, good demonstration to the international community about our agenda.
Wojciech Gorecki, Senior Fellow, Center for Eastern Studies, Poland.
Çok sağ olun, Janaab President. Thank you. I have one question on the perspectives of reopening of land borders of Azerbaijan, which is of great importance in terms of tourism, in terms of existing Azerbaijani community in Georgia, and I mean especially land border with Georgia. Thank you.
We were talking about security, regional development, risks, etc. And we see around us different areas of instability. Keeping the land border closed, decision was made because of COVID. We still are formally in the quarantine phase, but at the same time, let's be frank, the decision to keep the borders closed is not only based on that. We see now, after already some time the borders are closed, the strengthened security in Azerbaijan. In previous times, there have been many cases, some of them were public, some were not publicized, that we faced serious threats and problems coming from outside. And when I said that all our potential risks can come from outside, I meant exactly that. I think you will understand if I don't go too much into the details, but as a president, as a person who on daily basis deals with the issues of national security, I can say that we've seen tremendous benefits for our national security after we closed our borders. And this is a reality. Yes, people have to take that into account. We understand that there are inconveniences for people in Azerbaijan and also for Azerbaijanis and other nationalities who live in our neighborhood. But national security should prevail over all the other feelings or all the other reasons, especially at a time when we have war on our northern border, we have crisis on our southern border, and we have new areas of conflict emerging like mushrooms after the rain. I think that the people of Azerbaijan understand it. With respect to the tourism, I can say that the number of tourists is growing year after year. Probably this year we will reach pre-COVID number of foreign guests who enter Azerbaijan. First 3 months of this year demonstrate 24% growth of foreigners who come here. So if this trend continues, by the end of the year, we'll have more than 3 million foreigners who come to Azerbaijan, which is more than it was before COVID. So for tourism, actually, it doesn't make any difference. Yes, it is inconvenient for some people in Azerbaijan who would like to go by car to the neighborhood. We understand it. It is inconvenient for Azerbaijanis who live on the other side of the border in Dagestan and in Georgia and in Iran. We are surrounded by Azerbaijanis, as you know, on all our borders. But we have to be responsible. So situation to open land border is not yet, hasn't come yet.
Last two questions. Rick Fawn, Professor, University of St. Andrews, United Kingdom.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. In this invaluable marathon session, we've perhaps not mentioned demining in Karabakh. One of the very, very helpful things of these sessions is for all of us to see the horrible tragedy that remains. I'm wondering if you might briefly update us and how that's still impacting on the massive infrastructural developments that we get to see also in the important visits to Karabakh, and also what the international community could do to assist Azerbaijan. I know coming from the UK that there has been assistance, but it really shouldn't be an issue that is left simply to Azerbaijan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We are very grateful to UK and other partners who provide assistance to us in this most important issue now of the post-conflict reconstruction. And unfortunately, the war against Azerbaijan continues. And when I was answering the question about Russian-Ukrainian war, I said that ceasefire or even end of war is not the end. So we lost and were severely injured more than 350 people, and most of them are civilians. And unfortunately, this number will grow because the map of mines which Armenia refused to give us, saying that they don't have it, and then finally agreed to give us, was inaccurate. Accuracy was depending on different formulars, they call it this, about 25%. So demining is the biggest impediment also for reconstruction, because we cannot move, not only people, we cannot move our equipment and build a road without demining. Our resources are limited, though we increase the number of personnel in our state demining agency. At the same time, we created several military units of deminers in our defense ministry, but still it is not enough. That could be one of the issues where European Union can help us. And we raised this issue and even said that if you don't want to give the money, no, you give the money to the company who will come and demine if you want to help. And actually that could be fair, because they already announced that they have a huge package for Armenia. It was announced like $2.6 billion US, though Armenian territory was not a subject of occupation and devastation. But when it comes to Azerbaijan, unfortunately, we see different approach. So we would be grateful to any country or company, and also if some NGOs, some donor organizations could help us. We need more trained personnel. We need more people. And of course, if financial support is given, we will be very grateful. If not, well, we'll continue like that. Every year we allocate from our budget about 60–70 million US dollars for our agency for demining. It is not enough, and we do not increase it, not because we don't have the money, just because we don't have the means and we don't have trained people, because you cannot send a person from the street and to this dangerous job. It must be well prepared. So thank you for raising this issue.
Our last question, Kamran Bukhari, Director, Eurasian Security and Prosperity New Line Institute, United States.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Your Excellency. It's an honor to be here. I really enjoyed your candidness and the insights that you so generously shared with everybody. I really mean it. And congratulations on everything that your country has achieved, from the liberation of your territory all the way to COP29, and best wishes for the future. You have touched upon the question that I wanted to ask, but I will ask it a bit differently. So we have been talking about risk, and we've been talking about connectivity. And you mentioned the North-South corridor, we've talked about the Middle corridor. There are great changes taking place to the north of this country and, of course, to the south. There is the conflict that you have explained that you don't expect between Iran and its adversaries to get out of hand. But Iran is also going through change internally. Likewise, you mentioned that you don't know when, and none of us can foretell when the war in Ukraine will end. But the implications, the longer it goes on, the implications become more and more grave. How do you see this strategic environment affecting your country's ability to navigate towards the future and to achieve the goals that you've set for yourself? Thank you.
Well, actually, I think the best way how to navigate in this difficult environment, even without this war situation in the region, is as it is. I think the main remedy and the main recipe could be to be fair and to be straightforward. We managed to establish good relations and sometimes excellent relations with our neighbors, I think mainly because of that, because they can trust us and they know that there will be no surprise from us. With respect to Ukraine, our support to Ukraine's territorial integrity was articulated many times, and this is our position, which we do not hide, regardless the audience where we speak. At the same time, our friendly and strategic partnership relations with Russia did not suffer and should not suffer because of this war. And this is a position of our government, which is based on our national interest. I am responsible for Azerbaijan's security, safety, development, and stability. And whatever is necessary for that, I'm doing, based on principles. So never we did something which we did not consider was right or legitimate or, to say, perfect from a point of view of international law. Because if you yourself violate the rules which you want others not to violate, then it's just the beginning of the road to the desert, without water. The same with other neighbors. Already was mentioned about our good relations with Israel. Yes, good, and we consider each other friends. And that should not be a factor which interferes into our relations, say, with Iran or with Palestine. Our position is absolutely straightforward. And again, based on international law, we fully support the aspirations of Palestinian people to have their state. We were co-sponsor in many cases in different institutions, including Islamic cooperation organizations. So one should not exclude another. You must be fair. You must base your steps and statements on international law, and you should do everything in national interest and nothing against national interests. There have been cases in the region where foreign actors were moving the figures on the chessboard of the country. And what results it brought to tragedy. Foreign actors have their own national interest, and they not necessarily coincide with yours. If they coincide, good. If they don't, we say no. We never joined any adventure which could create potential threat to Azerbaijan. And always were fair in our relations with Iran, with Russia, with Georgia, with Europe, with our brothers in Turkey. And this is the reason why we achieve success. So nobody expects us to do something which we do not want. And this is already established format of cooperation. And also important is that we never do anything against anyone without any motivation. Yes, now we face unjustified attacks on Azerbaijan from some countries. We do respond. These countries actually launched a Cold War against Azerbaijan. We said, okay, we accept this, and we do the same. And we do exactly the same and do not cross the red lines and do not burn the last bridge. But we will respond, but we will never start first. And the same was with Armenia. We did not attack them, we did not occupy them, we did not expel them. It was them who did it, and they got the response, yes, in 28 years, but anyway. So if I continue my, continue to share with you my ideas on that, probably we'll need another 4 hours. So probably I stopped now, and I think it's enough already what I said. And thank you very much for your patience. So, all the best. Have a safe trip to Lachin.